Welcome to the Visual Cast, coming at you from California. I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, systems, crystals, alien downloads, spirituality, and catalysts. It's essentially a massive nerd out. But the guests also do a set where we dive into their computer and get an up-and-close look at how they make art, how they perform art, or really anything they want to share with us.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Guest, a very close friend, a longtime friend, one of my oldest friends in the VJ visual world. We've known each other, I think, since 2016, probably 2016, 2017, from online, and we got to meet in person somewhere in 2020. He's a really amazing artist, super high level, high brain, tech visual artist, and an amazing VJ and performer. Welcome to the podcast, Spencer Sterling.
Ooh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I think it's since 2017. I was trying to actually go back on our messages to see, but I think it's like when I started playing with Notch is basically when we started becoming friends.
Yeah, I remember seeing you on the Notch Facebook group. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to NotchCon? You weren't at NotchCon, right?
No, I was busy. I was on a gig. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because JT was there. I remember I met JT there.
Yeah.
So I want to start things off with I like to start things off with a little bit of a scripted question, and then we can kind of get into more of a conversational thing. So, my man Spence, from working on some of the biggest shows in the entertainment industry to getting poached to work at Runway ML, you have been absolutely crushing it from the moment you started. Your knowledge of every software from every angle is astonishing, and your ability to see something, learn it, and master it is fully inspiring. You have multiple audio-video projects running simultaneously, and you perform pretty consistently here in LA and the area. So to start it off, what did it feel like when a massive brand name company like Runway ML reached out and wanted you to work for them?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy. I'd say, yeah, like when I trained this model called Zeroscope, which was a fine tune of another model. But it basically enhanced the quality to the point where it was kind of competing with Runway, but it was completely open source and available for anyone with about 12 gigabytes of VRAM to generate really high quality videos. And as soon as I put that out, Runway hit me up, specifically the CEO just like sent me a message, and I was like, holy crap, this is pretty serious. But it wasn't like super easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, because it's a big jump to go from like creating content to then just like software engineering and like research. But honestly, it was like I would kind of been working my way to that point, and I was kind of like ready to do it. So I was kind of feeling it out, and then eventually, yeah, decided to go for it. But it's definitely a crazy experience to see this model like kind of explode and then get attention from like a big company like Runway. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I really want to get into your kind of experience with AI, and I think after the set, get into a little bit more of an esoteric conversation about AI, because I think it's a lot of, besides all the hype and all the fun stuff about it, there is a lot of questions about what it actually is and what it can do. But yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, Runway ML, I'm sure most people listening to this probably know what that is. It's a super cool video, text to video, I guess multinodal kind of video editing kind of software in the browser, a lot of AI tools. I think they were probably one of the first to kind of really showcase the possibility of like stream diffusion, but like, you know, with consistency, with some temporal consistency, with like some sort of understanding of what's going on. And yeah, I mean, when you told me that you were getting this job, I was like, wow, that's like super left field, you know, because I always knew you as kind of like a content creator and kind of like a designer, you know, like a high level tech artist for sure. But I just found it so cool. And I want to hear more about kind of your position in that job. But before we get to that, I'd love to kind of, you know, go a little bit to little Spencer, young Spencer. What was it like growing up in, you grew up in LA, right? In the greater LA area. You know, what was it kind of like, what was it like growing up in this kind of bubble of LA, Hollywood adjacent, you know, environment? And kind of was there any, you know, inspiration from a young age to kind of pursue the arts? Was there anybody in your life that kind of pushed you to pursue the arts or inspired you to pursue the arts? Just give us a little bit of the rundown.
Yeah. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, which is like a little bit like north of like the main kind of downtown area in Los Angeles. So it's a little bit separated from the chaos. But yeah, like I'd say when I was in I think it was when I was in middle school, it was like the first animations and stuff I started making. I was inspired by these like the stick figure animations of people like fighting and such, like with stick figures like
I remember those
online.
There was
like albino black sheep and stuff. Yeah. And so like, yeah, during the time, like people were making animations like Flash and stuff. I was like, oh, it's cool.
Newgrounds?
So like Newgrounds and albino black sheep. I thought that those were really cool when I was really little. And then the first animations I did actually were stop motion. So I was like doing claymation, and then I started doing like stop motion with all kinds of different objects and stuff. And I had like a Wiimote hooked up to my Mac that I could like press the A button and like take a frame. So I could really easily just like animate stuff by like moving it, press A, moving it, press A. And I would just like create these animations. That was like the first kind of like little like music video that I made. And then I was also like during class, like I would just always be doodling on stuff. Like, but I started making flipbook animations like all in my notebooks on the sides. And I like filled up all the borders on all my notebooks for every class just with animations. And like sometimes the teachers would be like, "What are you doing?" I'd show them, then they'd be like, "Okay," like they would just let me do it, which is great. But that was like my first kind of introduction to that stuff. But I didn't really think there was going to be like a path from there. Like I didn't really think of myself as like an animator or anything like that. Yeah, and then in high school, I started doing like really, really complex doodles that were like extremely detailed. And kind of around that time, I started kind of having like lots like more concrete like audiovisual ideas. And I was like, I really want to figure out like some software or something for me to like bring these to life, because I like had all these crazy ideas, but I couldn't really like I didn't have the tools to really create it. So I hadn't really gotten into 3D or anything. I was just like doodling. And then but people were really impressed with my doodles. I would like basically cover an entire page with tessellated patterns and stuff that were like extremely detailed. And it would take me like a month sometimes to fill out like one full page. And then, yeah, in college, I decided to do architecture because I was interested in 3D and design. And that was like, that seemed like the like some path forward. I was like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I did a year of that, and I felt like I was like, I could do this. Like, I'm good at this, but also like this sucks. So I don't really want to do it. So around the time I started looking into like media installations, and actually the thing that really inspired me, that like really made me want to do this kind of stuff, was Amon Tobin's ISAM tour.
Yeah.
So I never got to see it myself, but when I saw videos of it and like the little mini documentary on it, I was like, oh my God, like this is the coolest thing ever. Like this is exactly what I want to do.
That's the one that Velo worked on, I think, right? Is that the one with the squares?
I think that Velo did the second tour. I'm talking about the first one. It was by a company called Leviathan or something. Okay. Which I don't think V Squared existed yet. Maybe I don't know.
Okay, so it's earlier.
Yeah, this is like the very first ICM tour. I could be wrong, but it was it's a different company. But just watching what they were doing with that was like, oh my god, this is like
Blew your mind.
this is the coolest shit ever. Like completely blew my mind. Like totally inspired me. I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I switched to graphic design for like a year, and then there was a new major at the college I went to, which is Woodbury in Burbank, which it's a good school for architecture and also film. But they had a new major called media technology, which was basically like Unreal Engine, TouchDesigner, like open frameworks at the time, and also like messing around with stuff like Arduino and basically all these kind of like weird technologies for making art, like a blend of computer science and art. And I ended up graduating with like there is a class of 3 people because it was a brand new major that had kind of just been
That's
started.
awesome.
And yeah, and most of the people in the major they had actually come from like the game design major and were just kind of like they wanted to be more into like programming, I guess, than like game design. So it was kind of a weird mix, but I had a lot of fun there, and I got to learn and also teach a little bit in there as well as like a teacher's assistant for like TouchDesigner. And I ended up like my thesis project was was like an interactive installation where someone inside of a VR, inside of a Vive with controllers was controlling a scene in Unreal that was conducting basically using it to guide visuals that were triggered from Ableton. And then that was like rendered from another camera and then projected onto a surface. So it's like someone could like kind of like control these visuals that were being triggered from Ableton in VR and see I was manipulating in VR and then rendering that. So it's like a big integration between Unreal and Touch and Ableton. And yeah, in general, I've always been super, like I've been laser focused in having Ableton be the main controller for any of my live systems because I feel like I want to be as close to the software and the creation workflow as it is for music. So I just like really wanted to bridge those worlds from the beginning. Like the first thing I ever did, like the first node-based visual software I ever used was a VVVV. And like the very first thing I did in it was, yeah, or V4, or however people pronounce it. But the first thing I did was hook in MIDI from Ableton and like use it to like pulse a square, like make a square like move. I was like, yes, I did it. But yeah.
How did you get into Ableton? Were you always into music, or was it kind of just tinkering, geekiness, kind of like, and just enjoying kind of creating stuff?
Yeah, I don't know how I first discovered Ableton, honestly, but I'd been following it for a while, and I was kind of interested in creating music like many times, but every time I've like really tried to like go and make music, I never really like I had fun doing it, but I never felt the same like energy to do it as I do for visuals. And so like I haven't really put too much focus on it. I'm just like, you know what, like this is the thing I want to do and the thing I have the energy to do. I'm like, I'm just gonna focus on that.
Totally.
But yeah, but I love Ableton as like as a controller for a live system. Yeah.
But when you're making the music inside of Ableton, right? You have to have some sort of understanding, or at least some sort of basis of understanding of music. Was that something that you just picked up naturally? I'm not surprised. You're very good at that, kind of just picking things up naturally, or did you have some sort of guidance with that?
No, I mean, I've picked it all up naturally, just like learned. Yeah, I like learned from some like a few tutorials in Ableton, and then mostly everything I just figured out on my own. And then pretty quickly, I like got deeper into Max MSP than Ableton because I was just like, oh, like I can make whatever the hell I want in Max MSP, and then I can run it in Ableton. So I would it's funny. I would like make solutions in Max MSP. It's like, oh, I could have done that using another tool in Ableton, but it's like, just make it custom Max. So
I remember, because all the softwares that I learned was just from being like a massive nerd and just sitting on my computer all day, and like internet, kind of like growing up with the internet and just seeing all that stuff. And I remember like Fruity Loops, when it came out, was like a huge disruption to like the whole industry. I don't even know why. I think it was maybe because it's like, was it free maybe when it first came out? I don't remember, but I remember when it came out, it was like a big thing. It was all over the internet, and I was like, okay, maybe I could try that. I'll try Fruity Loops. It's like you're just making bars and kind of like you can kind of wrap your head around it without understanding much. And I don't know, within maybe like 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, I don't know how to make music. I'm not going to try that again. And I really haven't picked it up since. It's like, maybe like 15 years ago. But I'm always super impressed by people that can like I definitely understand music, especially after VJing for so long and understanding like, the ebb and flow of like a composition and just, being a very big fan of music. But creating it is just it's so foreign to me. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's like kind of similar to like taking a ramp, and like manipulating a ramp to do something, or like taking a noise texture and manipulating it to do something. It's kind of like analogous to like taking some sort of sample and playing with it. But like my mind thinks so much about how something looks, it's like shifting it to how it sounds is, it seems like very foreign to me. But I always wish that I would like have that extra time and effort to get into like making music, because I think that especially for people like us that love this audio visual thing, being able to create your own music is very special.
Yeah. There's been a lot of times where I've like made music and then just kind of like stopped it, and I was like, oh, but I really want to make like my own audiovisual stuff, like that's completely my own. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go into it again. And then like after doing it, I just kind of learned at this point that it's like I need to spend my time doing the things that I really like am drawn to, like that I really, really like the most. And so, that I'm really, really passionate about. And like, cause when there's something you're really, really passionate about and you're like working on it and getting better at it, like it's a game changer. So
it's
like,
exponential, right? It's like,
it gets exponential.
I always tell that to people. Like if you pursue a career or try to follow something that you're passionate about, it's almost for sure that you're going to be successful. Maybe not rich per se, but you'll be successful. You'll be good at that thing. You know what I mean? Like, because it's just that driving force kind of pushes you forward.
Yeah. Like if you're passionate about it, you will work harder than anyone else to do it. That's pretty much how it goes.
And you'll enjoy it. So you'll be successful in terms of being happy, success is not always measured in like money or like fame. It's also measured in like, are you a happy person? Are you enjoying what you're doing? So I feel like that's a good starting point. We have this babysitter now that's a young girl, and she's like, she's dabbling in all these like different art forms in her like a senior year, but at the same time she's like getting a job as like a realtor. This is like a super anecdotal story, but like, getting a job as like a realtor. And, she's like, oh, I'm getting my license as a realtor, but I'm loving the ceramic class. I'm loving this editing class, camera class. And I'm like, it's good that you have that backup as like a job that's going to give you like income and give you some security. But 10 years down the line, if you're not like super passionate about selling houses, which maybe she is, then you're just going to be like, what am I doing here? But if you like pursued a career in ceramics or photography and you're passionate about it, you're going to be so much better at it in 10 years than you would ever be at like any other job that you would do. And, usually that's a measure of success if you're good at something. But it's funny that like nobody tells you that, it's like something that's like, this like not like knowledge or like, like nobody told me that.
Double-edged sword. Yeah. Cause the thing is like I wouldn't say it's like rare that the thing you do for work. I mean, yeah, it kind of is rare, I guess. The thing you do for work is also the thing you enjoy. But even if you're able to do that, that might not necessarily be the best thing for you, because sometimes like you want to be able to separate your work from
your vocation,
from your complete, like from your artistic work. So yeah, like for instance, when after I left Silent Partners and I was working at Runway for a few years, and I like really, or not for a few years, for a few months, then I started like really seriously making art like I had never done before, because like that was like my only outlet to make art now, versus like always making stuff for Silent Partners. And then like that was like my creative outlet. It's like now it's like just me. And I felt like that was like a big step.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I remember talking to you a lot about that, kind of being stuck in that world. And I'd love to talk about that as well, because I think that's a super fascinating thing. But let's shift into that. So right out of university, you kind of got, I guess, poached again to work for Silent Partner. You're just getting poached left and right, man. They're just like, Snipe, Spencer, he's mine. What was it like? So, and we could say for people that don't know, but Silent Partner Studio is it's a pretty much international studio. I think their headquarters is in Canada, and they do content creation, immersive content creation, interactive content creation for Katy Perry, Beyonce. I mean, please, give us a little bit of information about that. What it was like working there, kind of coming right out of school and getting thrown into this kind of, massive kind of semi-commercial world.
Yeah. So right when I was like finishing up college, like my professor, Jesse Gilbert, he was like, "Oh, you should check out this Notch thing. It's kind of like everything you've been wanting." I was like, "What is this?" Because I'd been using Cinema 4D, and then also Unreal Engine, and then like when I was making stuff in Unreal Engine, I'm like, "God damn it, this sucks!" Like I don't have any cloners, I don't have deformers, I can't like play around and like really like make stuff. Like this is not like a playground for me to like make stuff, like it was in Cinema 4D. And also at that point, I had already been making GIF animations for Tumblr for like 2 or 3 years, and had already been working on content for Strange Loop Studios. I worked on like Flume and like Flying Lotus and like a few other tours.
Nice.
It was all Cinema 4D. So that was before I even graduated. And so I was
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. How did you get that? Just sidebar.
Yeah, so I was making all these GIFs online, and they were doing really, really well. And then one day I was at this show in Los Angeles, and in the bathroom I bumped into Strange Loop. I was like, "Oh, you're Strange Loop!" Like I recognized him because I knew what he looked like because I'd done some research. And he was doing all the visuals for Flying Lotus and all that stuff. So I started talking to him. I gave him the link to my Tumblr. And then like a few days later, he sent me an email. It was like, "Hey, you want to work on this tour?" I forget which one it was, but it was maybe like DJ Snake or something. And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it."
That's so cool.
And so I was doing
That's
that
such a
kind of
LA
on the side.
story.
Yeah.
I love that. It's such an LA story. Okay, cool. Sorry for sidetracking you. That's just a great little So Silent Partner.
But anyway, so I'd kind of been wanting some sort of real-time tool that was more geared towards content creation than Unreal Engine. And then my professor told me about Notch, and I was like, "Okay, let's check this out." And so like literally like as soon as I graduated, I bought like my my personal learning edition of Notch, and I would say within a month I had pretty much learned the entire program completely. Like I started messing around with a few of the tutorials, and then I literally just like went down like in the list of all the nodes and just dragged in every node. I was like, "How do I get this to work? How do I get this to work? How do I get this to work? This one has no documentation. This one has no documentation." I'm plugging in. I was like, figure out like everything. And then I started integrating it with Ableton, sending OSC, and I started hitting all these limitations, these things I wanted to do. I started talking with the Notch team. They would start adding features. I got many features in. I used to do really big emails to them with tons of features and bugs. Like I've just discovered everything because there was no one else like really, like there was a few other people, I guess, but I was like really trying to make like an audiovisual system that connected it with Ableton, and just trying to create that system. I like hit every single roadblock that you could possibly imagine. And so I had a lot of input on a lot of the earlier kind of like nodes, and then like I started posting a lot of stuff on the Facebook group, the Notch Facebook group, which is where I met you, and that's how JT found me. And so he saw my stuff on there. He's like, "Oh, are you in Los Angeles?" I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Oh, you should come by the office." And I did. And actually, one of the first gigs they wanted me on was actually a Kanye gig that never happened. So I was like, okay, probably dodged a bullet there. And then they brought me back to do a Connect installation for a brand. And I did that. It was like super easy. I'd already done so much stuff with the Connect at that point with Notch. And then after that, they're like, "You want to work for us full time?" And I was like, "Sure." And I did like a little, at the time they were working on Taylor Swift, and I did a little bit of stuff for the Taylor Swift tour. And then the first gig they had me go out on my own for like on site was Beyonce's Coachella show. I was like, okay, they need a Notch guy for Beyonce. And it's like, here's the guy. I'm like, okay. And it was with, I don't know if you know her, but Katy. She was the creative director, and also she does Notch and TouchDesigner as well. And so she was helping with that. Oh, she wasn't the creative director. She was kind of like assisting me. And then she ended up taking over the the gig for the rest of the Beyonce tour, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I got to do a bunch of iMag effects. So like at the time, Notch was pretty much only used for the iMag effects, which for the uninitiated, the giant side screens. Oh my God. Hell yeah, that's a good trigger to have. But for the uninitiated, it's like these giant, the giant side screens that are on the side of these big stages. They have camera feeds in them of talent, so the people that are way in the back can still see what's going on stage. Start integrating live visual effects into those. And then it eventually transitioned to the point where we were integrating 3D content with the iMag, and then just like actually just generating full 3D content with Notch.
Right.
So it kind of started off with iMag, and that was like the main use case for Notch. Like that's how Notch got its foot in the door.
sorry. You're one of the only people that know what iMag is.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like they still do it now, but it's not. It's I don't know. I mean, maybe they do it on that level still.
It's still huge. It's just like I think the term is a very old term from like the old almost even pre-digital. I think it's like because what is it? I think it stands for like image inside image or something. It's like almost like a.
It's like image magnification.
Image magnification. There you go.
It's weird to describe like what's going up on the screen. Like, it makes like no sense at all. So
it's so funny.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's so interesting that your professor showed you Notch. I love that because it's like I feel like I need a button for Notch. I need a button for TouchDesigner and Notch, and TouchDesigner like TouchDesigner and Notch is like Notch. I need to work on those buttons. But Notch is just it's so funny because it's like you actually still stuck with it, which I find fascinating. But like the joke that I always say with Notch is that like, yeah, you can learn it in like a few weeks. And I had the same experience. Like I was loving TouchDesigner, fell in love with it with this like node-based open framework environment. But then I was like, okay, I can't do like, I wanted to do volumetric lighting. Couldn't do it. I'm like, what the fuck? And in my Facebook feed, advertisement for Notch popped up and it's like, do you want to do real-time 3D? And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. Clicked on it. Bought the PL license. We just moved up north, so I was like, I'm becoming a full-time artist. I'm gonna start, doing my own thing and making my own path. Bought the license. Within 3 days, I got the base license. So I'm like, okay, I get the, I was like up, 12 hours every night, just like loving this thing. And but within maybe like for me it wasn't like a month, but for me it was maybe like the course of a year. I just reached a point where I was like, okay, I can do everything in this program. And now I'm kind of like not enjoying myself as much. But then work started pouring in because I knew Notch, and that was like kind of really new to me because up until then, all the work that I got was just from VJing and being known as like a VJ in Israel. And now all of a sudden I have these like international clients that are like, getting me to make content for massive commercial and corporate gigs that I was just like, okay, this is great. So I didn't even care at that point. It was more of just like, okay, well, I'm making a career out of this. But then things always kind of like come around, and when I got more deeper into Unreal, it actually itched that itch that I was missing with Notch of like, oh, this is extremely dense and I'll never learn everything in Unreal and I'll always find new things. But it's crazy how like that like the thing that you're searching for, sometimes it's like met, and then because it's met, you start searching for something else. Like, oh, I love Notch. I can create things really fast. I can do cloners in real time. I can do all this stuff. Okay, now I'm kind of bored. I want to make like intricate systems and create, UIs and whatever. It's just like, so I love how that, the how do I sound not pretentious, but like the want to get more knowledge or like learn more things is so powerful. And like the tool that you use is almost irrelevant. It's almost like just like kind of a path to the same direction of like trying to solve problems and understand different systems and things. I joke because I don't like Notch now, but I don't have anything against the developers or anybody. I love, Matt is like a cool dude, and all the people that work there are super nice, except for one person, but we won't mention them. And I think it's like a super cool tool still. I just kind of like growing out of it is not the right way because you're growing with it, you know? So like, I don't think that's really what it is. I just kind of maybe got a little bit jaded towards it, I think, and kind of found my place outside of it. But I just, you know, I love seeing new people get like falling in love with it because like their excitement is so it's so intoxicating, you know, like, oh my god, I could do this thing and it's in real time and it's running smooth and look how cool this is. And it's like, yes, Notch is super cool and it does super cool stuff. Working for Silent Partners, that must have been super cool for you. Just getting to see like the behind the scenes of these like massive, huge tours and shows, and kind of getting also like a little bit of not the business side per se, but like kind of the machinations of working in a massive team, right? Like you're on these calls with like 10, 15 people, and you know, maybe like on the call, you're not like the most important person, but then when the show starts, you're like operating, you know, you're like, you're making it or breaking it. And it's like a pretty high pressure situation. Was that ever difficult for you to like be in that kind of hot seat? Did it ever feel like, you know, was there anything that you had to kind of tell yourself or do to kind of relax yourself or get like in the zone, in the flow?
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty. I mean, I'd say almost every gig has like kind of a moment, or at least like, or more moments like that, where you're just like, you're under pressure and you have to finish something. You just have to go for it. But I also feel like I make like some of the best stuff whenever I have like a really, really tight deadline, and I just need to like sit down and just like freaking go for it. Yeah. And so I actually, I personally work really well under pressure, I think. And the stuff that I produce under pressure is like pretty good. And so, yeah, I kind of learned how to work in that environment, especially once virtual production became a thing, because then that took it to a whole nother level. But yeah, running these big shows is really interesting. It was really cool to see how these shows come together too. Like when you're in rehearsals and like nothing is done yet, and like they're just testing a few things, and then they test a little bit more, and it's like, oh, we have like 3 songs done, and then it's like we have notes for these, and it's like the entire show just kind of fills up from like nothing to like a full show. And then at the very end of this experience, you get to see the audience actually come in and react to it. Like really cool to see that. It's cool to be a part of that creative process and see kind of how things end up where they are. And it really gives you a good perspective. Whenever I go and see any show, I'm kind of like modeling like in my own mind, like how this entire show like came to be, or like what they did, or like where they decided to cut corners, like where they put their money, like all kinds of stuff. Like I'm just thinking about all of that whenever I see any show or any production. I'm like sizing it up in my head. Like I can't really go to a show or like an event or a production and not like and just be a consumer of it. Like I'm always going to be like a person that's like part of that stuff, and so I can't like whenever I see these things, I dissect them completely. So
for sure,
yeah,
I mean, that's totally normal. You know, when you see how the sausage is made, you're forever questioning the sausage, as it were. Yeah. I wanted to kind of, because would you consider yourself a VJ?
Yeah, I'd say actually recently I've been doing more VJing because I'm just like freelance, and like people are just like, hey, we need a VJ. I'm like, sure, whatever. Fucking, I'll put stuff on the screen. But but yeah, like most of the time it's completely custom and not in Resolute. So it's like, right. It's a completely bespoke system in TouchDesigner and all that stuff. So
yeah. Oh, interesting that you differentiate like a VJ being somebody who would do like a Resolute show versus somebody who's making like custom content. I like that actually. I think that's a good distinction that's often overlooked. No, I just asked because I feel like I kind of look at you as like a VJ, even though because I don't use the VJ as like that term. I use it as more of like a performing artist with visuals. You know, I don't think there's no good term for that, like audio visual artist, but that's just like a mouthful, you know. But I always wondered, like, what was I mean, you kind of answered it now with your anecdote before about meeting that guy in the bathroom and working on Flying Lotus. But, you know, was there some sort of catalyst or like moment where before school or even during school that you were kind of like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be an audiovisual artist. You know, obviously it's probably over the course of a lot of things, but, you know, was there kind of this strong trajectory into wanting to become this kind of figure and being this kind of performing audiovisual artist / VJ / you know, visual artist.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of always, yeah, like had these visions of music kind of in my head, and it was just like a matter of figuring out how to make it happen. But yeah, there was a point where I was like, I just want to make like just animate music videos like straight up. And then yeah, I would say it was like after I saw the ISAM tour, it's
That
like
show,
that's when I knew. I was like, this is what I want to do. Because yeah, after seeing that, I was like, wait, so you could do this and get paid for it? Is that the situation? It's like, hell yeah, I want to do that. It sounds sick. And then yeah, as I dug into it, it's like, I mean, I was really lucky to basically be able to get a job straight out of college doing this stuff for the biggest tours. And it's really because of Notch that I was even able to do that, because it's so niche and not very many people know about it. And you know, it kind of shocks me that people aren't really, that VJs aren't like oversaturated. Like it seems like a really cool job to have, but no one's like actually trying to do it.
I think it
like
is
very
nowadays.
few people. Yeah.
Nowadays,
I don't know. It doesn't feel oversaturated yet.
It's not oversaturated, but there is a huge influx. Like it's also exponential. Every generation, there's like way more than there were in the previous. You know, like my mentors, like there was like 4 guys. Like my generation, our generation, there's like, you know, 30, 40 people. And then now there's like hundreds, you know, so I'm assuming that it's just kind of building up, which is a good thing, I think, you know. But it is funny, right? Like you would think that like it's so much cooler in a way than being a DJ, because you don't have to be like, you don't have to deal with fame, right? Nobody's like, you're not like dealing with like the ego fame and whatever, but you can like be part of these massive, huge shows, you know, and like contribute to it in such a powerful way. You know, and it's like, yeah, it's a cool thing. You can go tour. Some people go touring with like massive names and they're part of the crew, like completely, you know. And you can kind of just like keep your anonymity, but also, you know, also not be like, you know, Tass or somebody who's like, you know, really famous and everybody knows them. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool place to be part of. So yeah, I mean, was it kind of like, you know, the intersection of like making stuff on Tumblr and then performing it, I guess maybe for you it's like kind of like almost like staggered, because you were kind of going to these big Beyonce shows, and then during COVID you were doing a lot of these live streams, and now you're doing your own kind of thing, so it's a little bit staggered, not like so linear, but the you know, the trajectory or the connection between those kind of things, I think is very potent, you know, like becoming a performer versus being an artist per se, you know. Do you feel that? Do you feel like the kind of the difference between the two things?
Yeah, I mean, it's very different to have something that's really, to work on something that you have a lot of time to work on and that you can perfect every moment, versus like performing it live and it just kind of is what it is. I feel like it's pretty different. Yeah. Performing versus, you know, making a piece of content. But in a lot of ways, it's also very similar. For instance, like a lot of people at Sound Partners that are animators, they're actually like almost all of them are like drummers or like make some form of music. And they actually, I feel like they really like to hire drummers specifically, because drummers really understand the important moments in a music and the right moments to accent. And the right, like they understand musicality at a fundamental level. And I do that. I'm not a drummer, but I could drum on some pads or something. I don't really make music, but there is some sort of connection there between like making music and understanding musicality and being able to create like a nice sequence. And then the next level I would say is live performance. Like for me, live performance is much more difficult. And I would say, yeah, it's like another stage, and it's the kind of thing where it's like you need to have real-time tools to be able to do it. So whether that's like, rendering pre-rendered content, playing it back in Resolume, or if it's generating everything on the fly in Unreal Engine, and stuff, it's like either way, like you need to figure out a way to do it in real time and react to things as they happen. And keeping up with the music that's happening, if you're not the one making the music, is also very, very challenging. And so I think, it's a lot more difficult to do performances. It's also kind of where you can have these kind of like magical moments where you really get completely into the zone and you're able to like do some really cool stuff that you would never do when you're time coding something, you know, like you just like, you get in that flow state when you're doing a live performance that you don't really get in the same way when you're doing something that is time coded and like really carefully created. So I really enjoy doing the performances. I have been VJing like my visuals from early on, like before I like while I was in college, just taking my GIFs and making like 1080 or 1280. I think it was 1280 is what I VJ'd at the time on my like shitty ass MacBook. But yeah, like I was always like targeting doing live performance. I would say like I like to mix between the two, but and integrate the two. But live performance is always my goal, and that's kind of why I was drawn to these real time tools and not. It basically like ditched everything that isn't real time, except for AI stuff. That stuff I still do because it's not real time, but it's so powerful that that it's worth it. And I've found many cool ways to integrate it with real time. So
yeah, before we get into AI, I definitely want to talk about that. We'll sidebar a little bit into virtual production. I know for some people it's like, for me personally, I'm still in virtual production, but for some people it's like this kind of a hazy period during COVID that's like, please no virtual production, please no. I had this whole chat with Sean Bose, because I met him in person. I didn't even realize it was him until later on. We talked about it at that Twitch gig that I met you in person at, and he was like working on some virtual production Unreal thing. And when he thinks about virtual, he's like, oh no, please no virtual production, you know?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, virtual production is an amazing technology. It's here to stay. It's, pretty much adopted. It's been adopted, I mean, since, Lord of the Rings and before Lord of the Rings really, but the next kind of the futuristic version of it, or the kind of present version of it, is LED volumes, that kind of allow you to do in-camera VFX. It became very, very, very synonymous with production during COVID because of the obvious reasons that you don't have to go anywhere and people can kind of be in one place. And, the laws around virtual production never really, or the laws around COVID never really affected virtual production for some odd reason. But that's kind of definitely how we met. It's how I got to America. I love virtual production. What has been your, what was your experience with virtual production and kind of, working with silent partners on some huge virtual production things, Katy Perry being one of them. I think that win an Emmy, or was that like, it was like a VMA or something like that one? Or was it at the VMA?
I don't know.
What was it?
I don't know. Yeah, we did a few big ones. But yeah, like it started, like before COVID, like right before COVID, actually, like sometime in like 2019, we had gotten our hands on like this new disguise build, and they were like, "Hey, can you test it out and do the like set up a virtual camera and stuff?" And we set one up like with like a Vive tracker and shit. And we were like, "Oh, look, it works! It does the thing." We had seen Berto already do it, and we were like, "Okay, we could do that." And then we got it set up, and we did a little demo, like a very quick one. And then we're like, "Okay, we'll shelve that for now." And then like boom, COVID hit, and we're all just like sitting there doing nothing for weeks. It's like there's no gigs. Actually, I was doing BTS's tour when COVID hit, and like basically flew out of there before they started shutting down like everything. Which sucks. So I was like really involved on that tour, and it would have been a really cool tour. It just didn't never happen. But anyway, the first gig that we got, Silent Partners got for virtual production was the Katy Perry American Idol performance, and it was very high stakes. Yeah, it was very high stakes. It had never been done before, and we barely had any time at all. We had like 2 weeks maybe to make the whole thing, and it was easily the most complicated thing we've ever done. And we made the entire thing in Notch, and it was extremely difficult. There was a lot of moving parts. The transitions that we did in that one were the most complicated virtual production transitions that we ever ended up doing. It was like the first gig we did. It was like pieces like of this, like the set like moving out and other ones coming in, and like a hand going grabbing something, like stuff rotating around the subject, like all kinds of these crazy things. And we brute forced our way through it. We had 3 people working on the notch scene, so that was a whole nother thing as well. It's like, because notch doesn't really support multiple people working on the same scene really, but that it needed to happen all in one layer pretty much for various technical reasons. And so we learned a lot from that. And it was like one crazy story from that is like we had set up everything and done rehearsals, and the XR, like this, like the disguise system, this is very early on, and it was really, really buggy. And we had set up everything and done a rehearsal with the stand-in, and then Katy Perry came in and like saw the performance, and as soon as she left, the tracking just completely destroyed. And we had half an hour when she was in makeup to fix it. Like that was, and it wasn't me. I was like, I just did the content. Like I had optimized it. It was really hard to optimize it.
Wasn't me.
To work. And then basically, yeah, like the other techs like running it were just like literally just dying. They're like, oh my God, they had tried like everything. It was like Scott Miller. Like it was insane. And then they're like, screw it. The only thing we have left to try, and the only thing, like, we have just barely enough time to like restart everything, like restart all the servers, get everything back up and running. And they just did it.
Restarted
and
everything?
As soon as she,
oh my God.
Yeah, and as soon as she walked in after makeup, everything was just up and running. We're like, okay, let's fucking do this. But that was like one of the craziest, most like stressful virtual production situations I've ever seen. And that project ended up being really, really successful. And it was actually, it might still be on Disguise's homepage, because it was, I think, for like 3 years. It was like the one thing you saw when you went to their homepage. That was such a successful shoot and everything that XR Studios was formed. And so then after that, they started taking, way more crazy gigs. And we did tons of stuff for, Katy Perry and MTV. So we did like the MTV VMAs multiple years, and it was a wild ride. It was like 2 years, I guess, of doing that, and the first like year of it was like the most brutal stuff I've ever seen. Like every single day there would be something wrong with the system. That was new. It would be something new every day. We'd get a new build from Disguise. And then it would fix that thing, and then the next morning it would be like, oh, there's a bug with this that's introduced in this build. It's like, oh my God, like this, and it's just such a complicated system, and it's being developed at the same time as like everyone is using it for actual productions, and so it's a recipe for disaster. But it was a crazy ride, like watching that technology like develop and then like get to the point where it's like a real kind of like workflow. And like today it's very solid, and there's lots
I was going to say, it's like we take it for granted a little bit how it works. So I mean, there's still issues all the time because there's so many moving parts, but we take it so much for granted now that like that end display works, or that all the workflows and all the techniques are kind of like synonymous now, so you can kind of build them in TouchDesigner, you can build them wherever you want really. And it's and the tracking has gotten better, and there's more players in the game. It is pretty crazy how like at the beginning it was like every day a new technology came out, a new thing came out, a new way to do something came out, and it was just like learning as you're going, and like not really knowing what's wrong when something went wrong, and you're just like kind of having to really figure it out on the fly.
That's a painful part about it too. That when something would go wrong, like everyone is just pointing the finger at each other. It's like, oh, it's like on the media server. No, it's in the content. No, it's in the tracking. It's like, no, it's Disguise. Like, like everyone's just blaming everyone. And it just sucked. Like there was no way to sugarcoat that. I mean, it was really cool to see this technology working and when like the stuff we were doing with it. But like, goddamn, like so stressful.
I think that's why it's so successful today, is because when it works, it's so freaking cool. And I think that like, there obviously with all technologies is like this big bell curve, where it like peaks and pops and then comes down and kind of settles. I think where it's settled now is pretty great, because the people that have been burnt by it are kind of coming around and being like, okay, I tried it out 2 years ago. Show me what you got now, and like the people that are still doing it, including the company that I'm in, are doing it good. There are still kind of like players in the game that are kind of like half-assing it and maybe making XR look bad. But I think most of the people that are doing it today, because it kind of lost its kind of like, it's like it's polished beauty of like, oh, XR, and you can kind of just sell a project because it has XR in it. Then now the players that are still in the game are doing it really well, and it's kind of turning around where it's like the cost benefit is actually there. Especially in Magic Box, and I'm not trying to plug my company, but like, especially in Magic Box where it's like the cost benefit is really there. I think a lot of companies are coming out with that. I just saw something from today from Disguise. They're releasing like their 2.0 version of virtual production, and the two things that they're talking about are like literally what we've been doing for like the past 2 years, which is mobility and cost effectiveness. So it's like those are, and the fact that the industry is turning towards those places really goes to show me that that like it's a viable thing, because it's like if a technology is getting cheaper, getting more mobile, then it's going to stick around and it's going to become more and more synonymous. People are going to be able to use it more and more and more, and it's going to grow. If the opposite was true and it just was huge volumes and that was the only thing that was successful, then it might have been like a stagnant technology that didn't really take off. But I think that, I think that it's such a good technology that you even have. You ever see the Skybox app, that like iPhone app?
Mm-mm.
It's like a pixel streaming to your phone, so you can kind of like run an Unreal scene on your phone, and it uses your phone's tracking and does like some AI masking. Excuse me, that you can kind of like do almost like AR filters or like Snapchat filters, but you're getting like Unreal quality camera tracking in it, and like it's like a $10 app or like a $15 app, and then there's a whole bunch of other suite of tools that use your phone that kind of like work in that sense as well. So I know, I think it's really cool. And, you guys with that Katy Perry video and other things that we did, the Twitch thing that I did with you guys with Silent Partners and multiple other collaboration kind of stuff that was happening with Silent Partners and, Berto's company, all of it now, as well, was also kind of like on the forefront of that. XR Studios, the other company, and many other people. Outside of Hollywood, because Hollywood's kind of its own thing with Mandalorian, etc. I think that really the boundaries that were pushed were so valuable or invaluable to where virtual production is today. Sometimes going through the grueling difficulties that you go through open up paths for massive industries. So that being said about virtual production, that was a mouthful. What about AI? What was your what about AI? What a great segue. Two-letter words: XR, AR, VR, AI. So you were working for Silent Partners. And then Runway ML, we kind of mentioned this, reached out to you and wanted you to. Oh, I will tap myself.
We can go back a little bit further. Yeah, after that, if we want to.
I will tap myself on the back here as well, because when we started becoming closer friends, I was kind of telling you like, you got to leave Silent Partner. You're not getting paid enough. You're working too hard for like what your brain is doing, and like you could do amazing things on your own, etc. I was kind of like pushing that. There was even a moment where I wanted to start a company with a few of us, that obviously, thankfully, didn't happen, because that would have been a disaster. But I think that I don't want to give myself any credit, but I always was telling you that, and there was even a moment where you almost took my job. With Create This, which was the company that I was working for a little bit. Whatever, that was drama. That wasn't even real drama. And our friendship still stayed strong. So that's what matters.
Hey, wait, actually, we could Create This. Let's talk about Create This first, actually. We could segue from there. Because, so during, when I was working at Silent Partners, they essentially needed someone to run this completely custom TouchDesigner system for virtual production. I was like, what the hell? Sounds kind of crazy. I was kind of that you built. And I was feeling, yeah, like kind of what you're describing. It's the sound partners. Like I want to do more. Like I want to have like more hands-on, like system building experience, and like really like, yeah, like building something that was that bigger than just like content. And so I worked it out with Silent Partners. I would just work there for 2 months, and honestly, I had a great time. Like it is a very demanding job. It's more demanding, I would say, than Silent Partners, because there's more on your shoulders there, because you're not just I was not just making a system or making content. It was both simultaneously at the same time in the middle of like a crazy shoot that was just like a 1 day shoot where we had to make the content on the fly, or like we only had like 24 hours to like make the content for it. But I'm really proud of what I did there and what I learned there, and also it was tons of fun working with the people there. It was just like a very different vibe, and it was kind of cool to kind of go off on my own and be like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now, and then kind of have Silent Partners to fall back on. As soon as I went back to Silent Partners, they had a Google job for their I/O event, and I got to work on that. I thought that was super cool. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like I really like Google, and they're doing some stuff with AI at the time. And then also Irfan, who was
Create this.
running this at the time. He was actually the first one to show me disco diffusion, which was like the precursor to stable diffusion. He showed me these videos, like this Facebook group. I'm like what the fuck? That's generated with like AI? Like, what is this? It was like crazy trippy, like it was like full 3D scenes that it was flying through. I'm like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. And then did the Google gig. And then after the Google gig, someone in Silent Partners hit me up, and he's like a freelancer that works for Silent Partners sometimes. And he was like, hey, I want to take this. I'd already been like really obsessed with AI at that point, like watching all these videos, kind of like talking about papers that were coming out and stuff. And he was like, hey, could you take all these images from this Instagram? I'm collaborating with them. We want to train a model based on these images with StyleGAN and just like generate similar images. I was like, okay, I've never run any sort of training or run any like Python project before. It's like, how hard could it be? And within like about a day or so, like I had it up and running and training, and it was cool. I was like, this is the first time I've run something like this. It was like fully saturated. My 3090 was just like running for like a month or whatever. Actually, it was running while I was at Google. This is before Google. So it was running, it was training while I was at Google. And then I came back, the model was like pretty shit, but it was actually making something cool, but it wasn't like really, it was like very vaguely resembling, like it was not a good training run. But anyway, I exported a shit ton of images from it, and he thought they were really cool. Then went to go work on this gig in Singapore for an esports gig. And then during the time I was there, Midjourney came out. Well, I had seen Midjourney. I was following some artist, and he posted this image. It was like so intricate, this alien like structure. I was like, what the hell is that? How was that even made? Like it literally made no sense to me. I was like, how could a person even make that? And then I looked into it. He said Midjourney. I'm like, what is this thing? And it was invite only at the time, and I didn't have access. And so I applied for access. And then one day I came back to my hotel room and I saw that I got access. I was like, oh my God, let's fucking go. And DALL-E had come out a little bit before. And so
DALL-E
it's kind of like
first, right? I think.
Yeah. DALL-E came out first, but very few people had access to it.
Yeah, it was also, invite.
Yeah. It was very much invite only, and very few people had access. And we had seen, it's like, holy shit, this is possible to actually like prompt for an image and get an image. Like, that's insane. And so then Midjourney came out, and I started making images. I was just obsessed. I was like, oh my God, like what? Like you could just like make art just from text. I was like, this is insane. And then when I got back from Singapore, I was like, okay, like I'm making images, but I don't make images. I make animations. I want to make audiovisual stuff. So like, how do we take this and make an animation? And then that's when I started getting into disco diffusion. And so I would take images from Midjourney and then put them into disco diffusion. And I was using this tool called Visions of Chaos, which is basically just this like app that this guy made. Yeah, he like made it really easy to install these AI, like basically GitHub projects without having to go through all the rigmarole that you usually have to go through. And so that was like a good way for me to get it installed. I started making these disco diffusion animations, and then I started running tons of them. I thought it was so cool. And then I would take these disco diffusion animations and then bring them into Notch and then time ramp them and like combine it with other visuals to create like a complete video. And so I was like starting to integrate, like AI with the real time stuff. And then out of nowhere, Stable Diffusion became a thing. I remember seeing like a post on Reddit. It's like someone's like, hey, this thing called Stable Diffusion is going to come out and you could apply for access here. And it's going to be as good as DALL-E or even better. And it's going to be completely free and everyone will have it. I'm like, what the hell is this? And so I joined the Discord, and then like within a day or two, they opened up the channels, and it was, I would say like that was like one of the most shocking moments of my life was like actually seeing what was going on in these channels. I was like, just everyone was discovering the capabilities of these models. Like in these channels, you could see everything that people were prompting, all the images coming out, and they were coming out so fast, and there's so many of them, and you're just like, everyone is like looking at this together and just being like, what is happening? Like this is like a huge revolution in like the creation of art. Like you could go from just an idea to like an image. It's like unbelievable. And it was like everyone was kind of like in disbelief, like together and just discovering the capabilities. Like, what is this? And so then like the very first animation thing that came out was like Visions of Chaos had like a way to do feedback. So you could like generate an image and then put that image as input and then diffuse a little bit more on top of it.
Oh, that's
You
cool.
could kind of like zoom in. And so like I remember I was working on the VMAs when that became a thing, and I'd like rendered a few animations like that. But it wasn't like the way that it works with Disco Diffusion, which was just this like amazingly smooth fly through with like 3D. And it wasn't there yet for Stable Diffusion, even though Stable Diffusion was like, it would basically take like 5 seconds to render an image with Stable Diffusion versus Disco Diffusion. It was like 20 minutes to render like a single image. So yeah, but so that then Deforum came out, which was basically like the same kind of thing that was being done in Disco Diffusion was now possible in Stable Diffusion. And I started making animations with that. It was just like incredible. Like the stuff that was coming out of it was so cool, but it's all very much in this exact same style. And I was like, okay, like you can control a camera and fly it through here, but you have to like literally like program out like with text. No, you can't. So, but you have to program out with text.
You mean like a zoom?
How it flies a camera. It's a zoom, but it is 3D and it is, I'll get to it. So like you could have a sequence where you said like, I'm going to move forward this much, or I'm going to like move the camera this much every frame. And it's like you don't get to say like, I want to go from this position to this position. It's only like per frame because it's a feedback loop. Right. And so I was really frustrated with the way you had to sequence that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a setup in Notch where I can fly like an actual camera and then use that data. I can actually previs. I could use a particle system to visualize how I'm going to move through this and then bake out that data into the format that Deforum wants. And so I was able to basically create a 3D camera path in Notch and then export that as like this what
was it
like sequence of numbers. And it works. No, it was pretty much. It was like a Python list, basically.
Okay.
Like an array.
Wow.
And
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
I was able to actually do that, and so I was able to line up.
How did you export that from Notch? Sorry, how did you export that from Notch?
I had to. I actually sent OSC out of Notch into TouchDesigner, which would then calculate the slope because I needed the slope. I couldn't just give it the thing. It had to be slopes. So it had to be the rate of change is what it wanted.
That's
and
crazy.
so I was able to actually do that. And I kept like refining it and lining it up to the point where I could have a particle system in Notch that is fully tracked to the exact camera motion that's in Deforum. And so then I started integrating the two and doing these kind of zooms. And then around this time, I met Lyle.simulate online, and then the two of us, we were the only two people like exploring TouchDesigner and diffusion and like video making. Like it was just us. Like we were the only two ones there doing it, and we started talking and collaborating and like sending like talks files to each other. And then he made an integration for, at the time it was Automatic, the SD Web UI. And so he was using the API to generate frames, right? And then control them so that we can basically create our own version of Deforum inside of TouchDesigner. So then we had full control over these animations. It was super cool. We were able to do all kinds of really amazing stuff. And he was able to do stuff with like, there was this other tool called Warp Fusion, which is still around, but not used as much anymore. But that one would do like video. That was like a video to video kind of effect that you would do in Disco. Yeah. Like if you've seen stuff.
Or not really?
No, it does it basically lets you restyle input video, but like with but it's like highly generative and
Gotcha.
looks fucking insane.
Gotcha.
But it worked with disco diffusion, and then they ported it over to stable diffusion, and then it had like at the time control nets had come out, which lets you guide the generation based on a depth map or lines or whatever, and that wasn't available in Warp Fusion yet.
Mm-hmm.
But because he was using the API and basically recreated kind of a version of it in Touch, like we had capabilities that no one else had, and so we could make all this cool shit and have full control of this feedback loop. And it's like amazing. Like we're the only people that were using TouchDesigner to really like fully explore these tools in video generation. Yeah, because lots of other people were just like outside of it, and they're like, I'm not gonna fuck with that, But yeah,
my favorite part. Sorry this is like super fascinating, so I'm gonna let you continue. But I just want to sidebar with Lyle's tool, with the dot simulate tool. The thing that I loved about it is that the best way to learn is real-time feedback, right? Like you change something, you see what it does instead of having to wait. And with the Stream Diffusion tool in TouchDesigner, whenever you make, and I'm sure when you guys were working on it, it probably was even more rudimentary, but whenever you make a change, you see it in real time. You're seeing what you're doing, so you're really learning how the AI thinks and the models work and the prompts work. I thought that was such a cool thing, to be able to understand how these things work. Sorry, continue. You're on a roll here. It's great.
No, you're right. It's crazy, honestly, like, because at that point, like, we had gone from disco diffusion, right, where it takes like 20 minutes to see an image and see like what those settings got you, and then like to like 5 seconds to see like what those settings got you. And then when you're actually in stream diffusion nowadays, when you can run it like 30 FPS, it's like you could really get a feel for like what you're actually doing, and it's insane. But yeah, so we were messing around with these tools, doing all kinds of cool videos and stuff, and then in the next year, so I did the Google gig again in the May of 2023, and they liked us from the previous gig we did, so they got us for this one, and they had a video model that they want us to play with to make content, and I was like, okay, let's get Lyle on this, and so it was me and Lyle. And we were working on this gig with an experimental model from Google called Fineki. And it had infinite length video generation. Yeah, Fineki, it's like a
it's a precursor to something.
It's like a name. It's like a name for those like those things you spin them like a It's kind of like a zoetrope in a way. If you look up Fineki, it's like comes from something similar to a zoetrope is what the name comes from. But anyway, it did infinite length video generation, which was unseen at the time, and it was a video model you could actually use. The only other publicly available video model, there was Cog Video, which was extremely bad, and then there was Gen 1, which was only video to video, and then they were teasing Gen 2 at the time. And then there was Model Scope, which I'll get into after this. But essentially, we were able to play around with this video model and create content with it. And then he was actually using TouchDesigner to compile all of his videos instead of using a traditional editor like Premiere. He's like, I'm going to do it all in TouchDesigner. I'm like, that's a really stupid idea, but go for it if that's what makes you happy. But definitely made it hard to like make notes and stuff. But he loved it. But he loves, he likes to make things complicated for himself just because it's really fun, and I do too. So I totally get it. But anyway, we did that gig, and I had so much fun with that video model. You have no idea. And I after the gig was finished and we didn't have access to it anymore, I was like, this fucking sucks. I need a real video model I can play with on my machine. Like, I want it now. And then so Model Scope had come out at the time, which if no one's heard of it before, it's the one where videos of like Will Smith eating spaghetti came from that, and there was like a Shutterstock watermark. Yeah. So it had a Shutterstock watermark at the bottom. The resolution was 256 by 256. The motion was like really, really bad, but it had a lot of motion, which was kind of cool. And I would say the success rate for generations was very, very low. Like you would generate like maybe 20 things, and like maybe one would be good, which is not ideal. Be like
noise, just like shitty, or
yeah, pretty much. I mean, it would just be like garbled like limbs, or like like it was complete junk. But every now and then you would get an output that would be like, whoa, that's actually like kind of good. And so this was integrated into the SD Web UI at the time, And this developer named Kabachuha, he made the integration and he found a way to do video to video. So same way you do image to image, where you start off with an image and then you only denoise part of it. So you only apply AI to like 50% of it or like 20% of it at a time. He was able to do the same thing with the video model. And what I discovered is that you can, if you just increase the resolution of model scope, it would make the output worse. But if you did an output at a low res and then you made it bigger and then diffused over it a bit at a high res, it got rid of the watermark. It made it way fucking sharper. It actually like completely refined the entire thing and made it a competitive video model, which I was like, holy shit, this is absolutely insane. That like, I just made this like one little workflow like tweak that's been done before for images. And I'm like, wow, it fucking works for video. Like it really does. And so that inspired me. And then there was a fine tuning, notebook repo that had come out. So this guy named Exponential ML created a GitHub project that lets you take a bunch of images and fine tune model scope, or videos and fine tune model scope. And someone did it for anime and it immediately got rid of the watermark and they were able to get the resolution a little bit higher, but it was completely anime styled. So I was like, okay, like that's cool, but I don't want to make anime. So like, let's make like a real video model here. Let's see what we can do. And so I was like, I've never trained anything at like a somewhat large scale. I was like, fuck it, let's go for this. And so I started collecting a data set. The first thing I did was go and grab a bunch of music videos off of YouTube and trained on those. And it came out, it got rid of the watermark, but the motion was like really, it was worse, I would say. And after that, after a few tests, I created a better data set where I actually went and grabbed like super high quality, well, actually, okay, let's go back a little bit further. So there was another guy developing these fine tunes called Comendaru, and he's on Twitter. He makes integrations for lots of stuff that's coming out, so it's very easy to jump into different projects. But anyway, he was gifted some compute power, and so he decided to train one at a larger scale. And he decided to use movie trailers. But all the movie trailers that he grabbed were like very low res and they had like watermarks on them. Like it wasn't a very good data set, but he trained. So he basically took the 256 by 256 model and he fine tuned it at 1024 by 576. So he like fine tuned it to output a bigger res that it's designed for. And when you actually render at that res, it has a lot of the same limitations if you render as if you render stable diffusion at that res. Like you get like doubling of heads and limbs, and it just doesn't understand composition at that res. But I like that trick that I discovered where you render at a low res and then do it at a high res. If you use the bigger model for the high res one, it fucking worked incredibly well because then it had the composition from the low res, but then the detail from the high res. And so you actually, and it smoothed the motion too. It made everything better. So, so yeah, from there, I saw that he did that. I was like, yeah, you know what? Like movie trailers, they're extremely high quality. A lot of my music videos that I put in, they were like animated. They had like mismatched frame rates. Like maybe the video was at 30 FPS, but the actual animation was at 12, like something weird like that. And this just like fucked up its understanding of video. So I saw how successful his was, but it was still not super great. So I was like, okay, we could just do this and do it better. And so I went and got like some really, really good data of Blu-ray rips of trailers, like really, really good trailers. And then I was going at it. So I cleaned up the entire data set. I had like hundreds of videos that I then wrote a program using ChatGPT.
The titles in the movie trailers, is that not, you'd cut them out?
Yeah, so I used ChatGPT to create a Python script that would detect text and stuff like that and detect the scene cuts. So whenever there was a cut to another scene, it would detect that and it split up all the videos and filtered out all that stuff. And also stuff where there was black bars where there wasn't supposed to be, like I filtered all that out. And I was left with like maybe 12,000 videos, 12,000 clips. So you can't have any cuts in these clips. They all need to be very short. And
so it was like 12,000
videos,
like shots from trailers, like a shot from a trailer before it cuts.
Exactly. So there's not very much time in these shots. Like usually a shot in a trailer is like 2 or 3 seconds tops.
2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, and which is perfect because that's what the video model's trained to output pretty much. So I had these 12,000 videos, and there was still stuff that wasn't like properly detected for my system. So I literally went through every single one. I scrolled through all. It took me about 9 hours straight to go through, comb through the whole data set. I cleaned the shit out of it. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, like I'm gonna really, I'm gonna be very confident in my data set. And that turned out to be a really good move because as I ended up learning, it's like the data set matters more than anything in terms of training. Like you can fit around with the settings for training, like throw more compute, do whatever. Like if your data set isn't good, like you have nothing. Like it's all with the data set. And so I cleaned up this data set. I trained one at 576 by 320. So 256 by 256 and 576 by 320. So only a little bit wider, but just to get it into something that's close to 16:9, right? So it's not just a square anymore. And that worked really well. And then I discovered this other little thing where normally whenever you diffusing an image or a video, you know how it starts off as like noise, right? And then it diffuses into the actual thing. Yeah. So a side effect of that process is that if you take the average value of the entire image or video, it's actually gray. So it's forcing itself to, it can't have things that like, it can never output a video that's mostly black or mostly red or mostly white. Like it always averages out to gray, always. And there was a trick that had been figured out called offset noise, which essentially during training, it does it at different noise levels, like different, essentially, puts in, it's able to train it and basically get rid of that
different
that effect.
seeds of a noise or like something like that?
No, like different levels. So basically it's able to get around this limitation. Yeah. From what I understand, it's like does it at different levels, but it's able to get around this limitation. And so I was like, okay, this model is already really good, but let's try turning that setting on when I train. And I trained it with that, and shockingly, it got so much better. Like aesthetically, it made it way better, which I did not expect. And then also the motion, like the actual motion, got better too somehow, which I still don't fully understand how that even works. But it did work. And then let's see how that worked. And by the way, I trained this on my 3090 at home. I trained this model, and it's pretty much like the best model you could get. It took maybe I want to say it was like 12 hours per training run or something, maybe on my 3090. So it's like an overnight run.
You did a bunch of training rounds, or?
Oh yeah. So what I would do is I would run with the settings and with the data, like with a certain data set with certain settings, and then it would keep, I'd leave it training, so it just keeps putting out new checkpoints like farther it gets along, and I would take all these, I would render videos with the exact same prompt, the exact same seed and everything for each of these checkpoints. And then I would go into TouchDesigner. I made a comparison tool in TouchDesigner. So I could literally go and see like, oh, it went from this to this. Okay, this one's better than this one. But then on this version, this one's better than this one. So it's it starts to get fuzzy. It's like, okay, maybe here's when it's overtrained. And then, so I kind of like figured out, okay, this is where I cut off training. And then once I got that one successfully trained, I like figured out, the recipe. It's like I have the low res one now, and it's like the best video model that's at this low res. But it's like, now let's do the high res one. And so I rented a GPU on vast.ai, which is like a service where you can go and rent some randos GPU, which is pretty sick. It's very, very cheap. I rented a A6000 for like 40 cents an hour or something. It was like nothing. And I launched this training run, and I ran a few just like I did with the other one, but all in all, it cost me less than $30 to train all of these models. And then I made a bunch of example videos, and so did Dot. He made a bunch of really good examples because Dot, he's like really known for doing the TouchDesigner tools, but he's also extremely good at testing models at a very large scale and using his TouchDesigner tools. Like he creates tons of prompts using ChatGPT and then runs like thousands and thousands of prompts. And so I would mess around with the model on my own, and I'd send it to him and a few other friends, and then they would show me these things that are coming out. I was like, oh my God, this thing's fucking crazy. And so I put together a few videos, and then I had this one video of this super creepy like deep sea horrors that I made as a promo for one of I actually made it as a promo for a show that I was throwing in a bowling alley. So it was very viral, it was just a promo. Yeah. And so that's the one I did when I launched it with that video. And I uploaded it to Twitter at like 9 or 10 p.m. on a Friday, like pretty much the worst time you could ever post anything to social. pretty much. And when I woke up in the morning, like it was completely blown up. Like it was insane. Like it was on like all the major Twitters that were covering AI stuff. Like it was all over that. It was just completely blew up. And the one Twitter account that I kind of tell everyone to follow if they want to keep up with AI, which is AK on Twitter. He had posted about it tons of times and continued to post about it for like 3 weeks straight. Like it just like dominated AI news for like 3 weeks. I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And then at the time I'm still like doing like little like R&D stuff for silent partners. I'm like, look at what I did was like, I'm not going to tell you the kind of crazy job offers I'm getting right now, but, and then eventually, yeah, I decided to go with Runway. I did have an offer from Pika as well. And
Pika?
A few other people. They're also a big video generation company that was competing with Runway at the time. Yeah, I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with Runway. This seems like it'll be kind of fun. And also, yeah, like everyone I talked to there was super cool, super legit, and just full of really good people from what I could tell. And so I decided to go work there. And I really wanted to kind of like understand. I wanted to like work with other researchers and really get a better understanding for these things and like see what I could learn, and also contribute to this crazy video model that they're making. And I ended up doing lots of kind of finding a role. So the role that they wanted to hire me. They were like, "What role are you?"
Right. They want to hire you. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, exactly. Like seriously, they're like, "What do you want to do for us?"
Crazy.
And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll call it ML technical artist, essentially." So it's like, I'm probably one of the first people I think to have that job title, but I hope there's going to be a lot more. And I feel like there's a big market for it as well. It's like growing, but right now it's not that common. But anyway, I have this role, ML technical artist, and I started creating like prototypes in TouchDesigner to basically do all kinds of crazy stuff with Runway. So I basically started off by making like tons and tons of prototypes for all these crazy interactions that we could have, because it's a lot more difficult to build stuff like that in a web environment than it is to do it in TouchDesigner. Right, so sure. I started kind of using TouchDesigner, as a tool for prototyping.
So you use their models locally, or you still would tap into their models online?
No, it was all still online, and like all the compute. Well, it would still be it's like in a cluster and stuff like that. But
gotcha.
But yeah, I would tap into it.
Accessing it through a TouchDesigner.
Yeah. Super and cool. So that was kind of my first thing. It was like figuring out, like cool.
Did they know what TouchDesigner was? Out of interest, did they know what TouchDesigner was? Like,
some of them did.
They did.
Yeah, some of them did. There's some very legit artists at Runway. Like there was like at least 5 or 6 people that like operate lasers at Runway, and like really? For instance, there's like people, like they really like to hire artists, and so the entire team is it's full of artists.
That's so cool.
Yeah, for sure. And so they knew about TouchDesigner, they knew about kind of these generative tools, and I started creating tons of prototypes. Then started kind of like shifting into making custom prototypes and integrations for enterprise clients. So I started I can't talk specifically about everything I did, but it's very generally I would create these prototypes, and then
like custom models for clients, basically.
Custom models and ways to create custom models and custom like interface prototypes, like
interactions, like UIs and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. So like a customer needs whatever, let's just say like a soccer company or a soccer, I don't know. So I don't know why I said soccer, but like a sports company needs to generate a bunch of sport images. You'll make them some buttons that do different things and kind of like different specific types of things that they need.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You'll test it as well and make sure that it works, kind of thing.
I would kind of build it, and then like we would show it to them, and then figure out where we're going to go.
Where would you build? And you would build a UI on web, like on an HTML kind of thing, or was it own custom?
It depends.
Thing? Depends.
Sometimes it would be TouchDesigner, and then eventually work its way into web. Yeah.
Interesting. You would deliver a TouchDesigner patch to like a enterprise? No. You would give it to their Runway's designers or UI designers?
No, that was just for me to see if it works, and then if they like what they see, then take it further. But
gotcha.
But yeah, I would prototype these things, and then I think I did lots of like random stuff because this AI stuff is just it's a big playground for me. So
it's such a
Yeah.
crazy. First of all, thank you for sharing all that. It's super fascinating. We don't have a lot of AI people on the podcast besides for Lyle. So it's super cool to hear that kind of side of things. Two things that strike me. One is, first of all, this job that you're talking about, the this ML artist, tech artist. It's so interesting because it's almost like undefined. Like you're almost like a creative director, but like, the client is like an AI model. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like, you're yeah, it's super interesting. Like it seems like such a like an open-ended framework for kind of like things, right? Like we need to test this thing out. We're not going to give it to one of our teams. We're going to give it to Spencer. He's going to fuck around with it and play with it, break it, make it, figure it out, and then we'll take it to our team and make it into like a product or something like that, which is like kind of a very unique position. Like I don't even think, like it's kind of like an R&D position in a company, right? Where you're kind of like in an R&D position, but this is like a little bit more esoteric where it's not like you're not really doing R&D. You're actually like doing something for a client. It's both. It's like this very interesting. I'd love, I think you should, this is like a side note. I think you should write like because now that you're not working there anymore, I think you should write like a blog post or an essay or something about like what the position was for you, so that A, as a reference for yourself, and maybe B, as like a reference for other people that are being poached and being hired, and that they can be like, okay, well, if you're going to hire me in this position that's super esoteric and random, here are some guidelines, or here are some, trajectories or paths. I think that would be very useful for some people, and also might be able to generate this kind of like title of what is this ML tech artist kind of thing. Now that it's been a few weeks since when did you stop working there, by the way?
It was in August.
In August. Okay. So it's been a while. You've had enough time to contemplate. I think that would be very useful. I don't know if that's something that you like to do, writing things like that, but I think that would be very useful. And then another thing that stuck out to me was, what do you like about AI? I mean, it's obvious, like what you like about things in general, like, the geek out and kind of getting deeper into it and understanding, but like, what is it about AI that you really love so much? Can you, and I want to get to your set here now, cause we're getting deep, but, yeah, I mean, can you quantify it? Like, what is it about it that you like so much?
Yeah. I mean, like real-time stuff, it's really fun and you can get really deep into it. The same thing, you said with Notch, where it's like you get really into it and then you find out you've kind of like reached the bottom and you're like, okay, like I'm going to move on now. Yeah. AI truly has no bottom, and we have no idea where it's going. And there's infinite possibilities and no one is even getting close to exploring them. Like, it's insane. At a very surface level, people see it as like, oh, I'm going to type in text and I'm going to push a button and then I'm going to have art. It's like, no. That is like the most surface level. Like, that's like, taking a picture and then like posting and being done with it. It's like the same shit. For me, it's like the beginning of the process, and it's the possibilities are just endless and no one knows where the boundaries are. Like the fact that I was able to, as an individual artist, was able to train a model that competed with like Runway
like a legacy
at the time.
Company. Yeah.
Yeah, like a real company that was putting out a model that's charging a lot of money for it. Yeah. Like I was able to do that, like it's crazy. That's insane. Like there's so much to be discovered and so many crazy things you could do. It's like, it's so powerful. But ultimately, the thing that really brings me to it, not just like the exploration part, but the fact that it is getting me closer to having these visions in my head and getting them into reality like so much faster. And that's only getting better. And then on top of that, there's like the aspect of coding. So for me, LLMs, like the only thing I do with them is coding. Like I just have them coding Python for me all the time, and other languages as well. But that unlocks so much for me because I've been coding stuff in Python like for TouchDesigner, but it was always like, shit, I have to do this with Python because it's like the only way, or it's like the best way. It's like, okay, I'm going to go through Stack Overflow. Okay, we do this. Oh, we need to do this. Let's look at the documentation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's like now, like I can prompt and it'll give me something that actually gets close to working or does work. And then if it doesn't work or I hit the limits, then I can actually learn what's going on and figure out how to get past that. And so it's like, I start to get into this workflow with it where I can like actually build like anything I want. And I'd say like we're right now at a point, well, we've kind of been at this point for like at least 6 months to a year now, where like, if you want to make something in software, like you can brute force your way through it no matter what. Like,
and you'll learn along the way, like how to program.
Yes.
I had the same experience that like going from, because I think like, the visual scripting, the visual node, the visual based environments, you're vicariously learning how coding works, right? Because like it's not a node is like a definition, and then you connect your inputs and your outputs. It's like kind of declaring things and having references to things. And then obviously in TouchDesigner it's even more, because you have expressions and you have references, and it's like much more similar to like line code. And then but the jump from that to line code is so scary, or maybe like not there's no like linear trajectory to it. But now with the advent of ChatGPT and these LLMs, that you can kind of like really, okay, I know what I'm looking for conceptually. I know what I'm looking for like on a on like a I keep on using this word esoteric, but like on a like a esoteric way of like, I want this thing to do this, and I want it to output this, and I know that this tool does this, right? Like this Python library does this, and I know that it does this, and you don't have to worry about syntax. You don't have to worry about like structure. And while you're doing it, you're also really learning how code works. For me, it was like within, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months of just like prompting Python ChatGPT, I can now like look at Python and read it. I might not be like at the level that I can write things by myself, but I don't think I'll ever be at that level, but it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know how quantum physics work on a math level, but I understand them on like, an esoteric level. But, so it's like, I think that is very powerful. And it enables like people like ourselves that are like, kind of tech artists, or kind of like on the line of like artist and developer, artist and kind of like technical person, to really go to the next level, and really be able to, if not create, at least understand these systems to a whole nother degree. So I totally, the AI train of content creation, I have been following it also since, Deep Dream, like for a long time, like StyleGAN and things like that. It never went into my workflow of content creation. It just never, I don't personally like the way it looks, or I shouldn't say it like that. I don't personally like the aesthetic of it for my art. I don't not like the way it looks. I think it can be beautiful. So that wasn't really interesting to me. But now with the LLMs, that is something that's such a powerful tool. And I think that even with Midjourney and, other stable diffusion, stream diffusion specifically for me, because it's real time, there's so much application of it outside of content creation that I think it's just like a really crazy time to be inside of this sphere.
Yeah.
And with that,
I would say, wait, I want to go a little bit further.
Please go.
So just to like drive the point home, if you like really want to make something, you actually can fucking do it now. But as an example, there's been many like things that I've wanted to create that I'm like, it just seems like it's too big to like learn all the stuff around it to create it. And there was one time, like a few months ago, I wanted to make like a web app that I could use to visualize like depth, like a depth data. So it's like take an image and then apply like a depth map to it, and I could
any depth,
like see it in 3D. Yeah, but I wanted to see the depth as like in 3D in my browser, right?
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, like where do we even start with that? So I went into Claude. I use Claude because it's much better at coding than ChatGPT at this point. I haven't tried O1, but Claude is like it's so fucking great. But anyway, I was like, what? Like, if I want to make this in a web app, like, what's the best way? And it gave me like a few different options. I'm like, well, what's the best one that's like will be easier for you to code a lot of it for me, and is really well understood and all stuff. It's like, oh, well, you should use Three.js. Like, okay, cool, let's use Three.js. So here's what I want to do: make this app that's going to take an image with the depth and combine them into a displaced plane. Go ahead and write the program basically, and figured out it did the entire file structure. So it said like, okay, here's where your directory is going to be. These are the files that are going to go in this directory, these files. And then here, I'm going to write all these files for you. So it wrote all the files. I was like, okay, thanks for all these files. Like, where do I put them? And it's like, okay, you put them in here and do it like this in VS Code. I'm like, okay, cool. I put them in there. And then it's like, I tried to run it and it was like, oh, I think I need to like install some other stuff. It's like, oh yeah, here, run this command. I'm on Windows. It's like, here's the thing, run this command and then run start and then start it up. And I had a displaced plane. I was like, "Holy shit, this is insane!" Okay, now
in a web browser.
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay, now can I have like a camera that orbits around it that I can control with my mouse?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, here you go, boom!" I had that. I was like, "Can you add like some sliders in the corner to like allow me to control like the amount of depth displacement and like change it to like have a checkbox that changes the points versus polygons?" And it was like, "Yeah, no problem, just stuck them there." Like, it's fucking incredible.
And now you're
like,
a web developer.
Yeah, it's like out of nowhere. It's like I wanted this thing and now I have it. And I feel like that's kind of where it's going right now, where it's like instead of being beholden to like what engineers decided like was going to be your creative workflow, it's like you can take full ownership of your entire creative workflow and build anything you want. Like instead of like using Photoshop, it's like you could just prompt for an entire Photoshop application that does exactly what you want.
It's like when Photoshop came out and it's like, you don't have to, know how to use a darkroom, or you don't have to know how to do collages or paint. You can just like take a bunch of stuff and make it into something. And it's like, it's obviously like 100x Photoshop, but I feel like it's the same disruption in that sense that it's like digital art disrupted, a huge industry because of the softwares that were coming out with it, not necessarily the technology behind it, if that makes any sense. Like personal computing obviously was like a very big thing, right? But it wasn't like, I guess it did change the world. It definitely changed the world. Personal computing definitely changed the world. I don't know. I want to get into the discussion of AI like after of like what it actually means and kind of like, the personal, in my personal opinion, bullshit hype around it. But I think it's remiss to not look at it in like a very like this is a very powerful way. And I think for people that are maybe younger or like more beginning, I think it's something that should not be overlooked. Maybe don't put all your eggs in the basket of like how do I prompt or how do I make how do I use Midjourney, but definitely because I still think that there is value in understanding how things work, right? Like just getting like if I wasn't visual scripting and I learned how to code, I don't know if it would have been as powerful as, okay, I understand the machinations of making a program and making a structure and an environment, and now I can learn Python. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there is something still valuable. Like, if I didn't know how to use a 3D software and I'm all of a sudden prompting things, maybe I wouldn't learn, like, the importance of lighting or the importance of color and maybe in the future that doesn't even matter because the models will do it for you. But I think there is value to understanding things a little bit deeper. So I think that there's a balance that needs to be found.
Well, I think that what I'm seeing though with a lot of people that are using it very, very heavily to create like whatever they want is that they're discovering that they're able to actually learn so much through this. Like for instance, Lyle and also my friend Phil, they had very, very little programming experience and they are absolutely incredible now. Like they can really make whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, when Lyle told me that he doesn't have any background, I was like, what? What do you mean you didn't have any background? He's like, I just kind of started doing it and got into it. And I'm like, it blew my mind that he doesn't have, I thought he for sure has some sort of coding background. It's like, no, 2 years, 3 years, just been like.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah, I think it really, now we're kind of discovering that like, you don't have to go through the traditional method to like learn programming. Like it's good to learn like a little bit. Like I definitely, if you want to learn programming, you want to do at least like a little bit of programming on your own to like have that experience and understand it. But then now it's possible to just program at a higher level where you can still understand everything that's going on, but you don't really have to figure out how it happens until you do, because
You'll
still
get to
these
a point.
LLMs, the problem with these LLMs, I mean, we can get more into it later, but they are still an interpolation of everything that is there. And so if there is something that hasn't been done before, that hasn't been quite solved, it's not going to be able to do it. And it's still up to you to push forward and make it possible. Yeah.
Totally. Okay, I think this is a good time to get into the set portion. All right, so we're now in a very special setup. Spencer is gone, but he is now in a alternate universe in his fun studio out here, and we're gonna get a really awesome introduction to some crazy audio visual magic. So take it away, Spencer.
Yeah, so this is a setup I've been working on recently. So my projector broke. I usually trace stuff with lasers using the projector. Like I have these AI visuals that I trace, and so I started. I kind of have this goal where I want to try to do 3D mapping with lasers, with similar to projection mapping, but with lasers, and that's essentially what I have going here now. So here I'll kind of give a little tour of the setup here, but essentially, yeah, there's like a bunch of boxes. There's like 3 boxes that I've kind of like taped together and covered in white paper over there, and looks like this. So if I stop the laser, yeah, I can't even really see it actually without the laser. But I photo scanned it, so I used reality capture to I took a bunch of photos of it, then made it into a 3D object, unwrapped it, brought it into Notch. And then inside of Notch, which is here, you know what? I'll go back. Actually, fuck it. Well, I'm already here. Inside of Notch here, I
Go back.
basically have the screw it here. Fine. Here.
You're good.
So inside of Notch, I have the object that I unwrapped, and then I kind of like mapped out all of the surfaces of it. So I kind of have complete control of this thing now. And the way that it works is it comes out as these unwrapped as an unwrapped UV texture, and then in TouchDesigner, this is a crazy node graph that does all my laser stuff. I am actually using Cam Snapper to map it, so it's pretty wild because I can if I open up the Cam Snapper window right now, I open this up. Oops. Oh, there it is. What? Okay, whatever. If I click on one of these right now, oh, whoops. Oh, let me patch this in. It'll actually point the laser like directly at that thing, which is so freaking cool and satisfying. Like it actually points it at that point. I was able to literally like go and map it by like pointing the laser at each point, and it was very satisfying to map it out. But I have it mapped. I have 2 lasers that are behind me. Yeah, so there's a 3-watt laser on my right and a 7.5 watt laser on my left. And here I'll zoom out to this big one, I guess. But well, anyway, it's on my left and right, and yeah, right now it's lagging. Let me go out and perform. So yeah, let me patch this back in. So essentially, there's 2 perspectives, so it's like 2 projectors, and each of the lasers is now tracing this box. So I've been trying to kind of create content for this. I just barely started it, so I'm just going to kind of continue and mess with it. But
just a quick
this
question.
Is like my template now.
This is super cool. You mentioned that you took a 3D scan and then you cam snapped it, but you said something before that about Notch and making something in Notch, like the faces in Notch. I didn't really get that. Is that just for making content, you mean?
Yeah, so
like you made a pixel map?
Yeah, well, I brought the unwrapped model into Notch, and then I'm doing a UV cam to get it back out as the thing, and then that goes into Touch. So now I can drive. I'm basically programming the laser in Notch now because it goes into Touch, and then it goes through a tracing setup. You know what? Let me show the tracing because this will kind of demystify a lot of it. So, essentially, what happens here? So usually I trace an input image that comes through this spout feed. And then here, yeah, so it goes into a trace SOP. So this will actually trace out the boundary of the input, and then that gives it to me as a path. And then I have some like weird kind of like different modes that are kind of controlled in here. I'll show what that looks like in a sec. I apply the color to my laser here using a texture SOP. And then here so right now I have it doing Cam Snapper, but I actually have it working with Canton Mapper as well. So I can Canton map my
So like
my
a 2D
laser as
workflow.
well. Yeah. And then I use this thing called a creep SOP to basically map the laser content to the Canton mapped plane, which makes it really efficient because then that way it doesn't have to run through a lot of the stuff after the fact.
Time.
Yeah.
That's almost like what you would do with
still have to trace
with
every
like
time. Yeah.
But
with like
you still have to
UV.
trace every time. But you're getting like
I do.
But okay, I understand. But you don't have to use Canton.
This way
now,
it doesn't have to.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. So yeah, the tracing is still very inefficient. It's the thing that costs the most with this entire setup, and that's why this is one of the TouchDesigner files I have. But I put all the laser stuff in this one because the CPU load is extremely heavy on this one, so I had to put it on its own thread. And this is where the laser comes out for one of my lasers. I have like 3 different laser settings here. So like these are all kind of different settings, and I'll show you kind of what they do when I play around in Ableton. The whole thing is controlled from Ableton. From a second computer that's running Ableton right now. Communicates over OSC. And this is the second laser, this first laser, second laser, and then they basically go out to these laser device chops, and that's pretty much it, which is it's cool. And then I have a visualization.
Are they going
here.
directly from directly from TouchDesigner into the laser, or is there an intermediary program?
Nope, this is it. It just comes straight from here. I'm using an Ether Dream laser interface.
Gotcha.
I have 2 of them, and that's how it's working. I have this little interface here.
I love that.
Yeah, so it comes in one of the op snippets. There's like a previs thing, and so I built that in here so I could see what's going on. And usually, I actually use this previs line. I send it back out with Spout. And that's how I use that in part of my visuals to create feedback off it. That it looks like the laser is like burning or tracing into the visuals because I can use this to do feedback and compositing as well. So it's a pretty interesting little like feedback loop that I have going with that. But yeah, this is how the laser tracing setup works. There's a bunch of other random. I really need to refactor this whole thing at this point because I've built in way too much stuff into it. It's gotten to that point officially. But yeah, in general, I don't like to refactor everything all the time because it's like a waste of time if you're constantly adding stuff. Totally. But it does reach a point where you add so much stuff, it's like, okay, this is actually confusing now.
Redundant or Also, it's nice to put things into containers. You can kind of like, once you like build something and you know it's going to kind of like stay the way it is, sometimes it's good to just like put it away.
Yeah, it's a skill like with real time and like system building stuff where it's like you have to pick your battles. You can't just like always be cleaning up everything all the time. Like sometimes you actually need to get to the end result before you can know how to clean it. Because you have to know what you actually want, and it's a difficult thing to gauge. It's something you kind of have to feel it out with experience. But anyway. I basically have no content for this at all so far because I just barely mapped this out yesterday.
Let's go.
But so here, let me. Oh, these are on. Oh, I have it paused. Okay. So this is currently tracing. You can see over here I have 2 sets of boxes. That's because one is for the right laser, one's for the left laser. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this down so I can change the colors a bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's a pretty decent amount of fog. I mean, there could always be more fog. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. There you go. I have it literally on a slider.
You're in your apartment right now. You're in your house right now.
It's a garage that's in a house.
Garage. Okay.
Yeah.
Copy.
Yeah. So I've turned this garage into
by your garage and like a bunch
setup.
of fog is coming out of the garage. They're like,
it's all sealed up.
Okay.
But I'm sure people are looking at like all the crazy flashing lights in the window, like, what the fuck is that guy doing at 5 a.m.? But so I'm gonna try to make some content for this now. Screw it. Let's see what I can do. So let's duplicate this. Okay. Actually, just to play around, I'm gonna duplicate this guy. make them both the same thing really quick. I just want to put some textures on the whole thing just to see what's up. This one goes here. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be a messy node graph, I can tell. So I mapped out so each surface of the box is its own material slot, so I can really just control the whole thing, which is cool. So wait, why is it only mapping that box? Oh, right, because this is like a mapping node that's doing that. So let's see here. You know what? I'm gonna make a new material. Oh, also, like it's worth explaining. I have like a crazy hotkey system in Notch. So if I want to like make a post effect, I can do Control-Shift-P, and that brings up this tooltip. It's like, oh, I want invert. I press I. Boom. So it's gotten to the point where I can just like really easily get whatever I want. You know, like if I want a gradient or like I want a choral noise warp. Like it's muscle memory basically, which is really fun.
Nice. And this is Notch 1.0 for anybody wondering why it looks different.
Even though it's 1.0, it's even more beta than the last one. Okay, so let's see. Like, this is kind of cool. Like, just putting a box on it already looks insane. Let's see here. Let's get the mapping node. World coordinates. Yeah, so this is cool because I can actually just kind of slide this up and down. This is like the black and white is where it's going to trace the laser. The thing is with the laser, you get the pattern too tight, and then this is what kind of happens. Is it's like it's not able to trace through the whole thing. Yeah. Because the problem is that
a refresh rate?
Yeah. So the thing is with lasers, right, is that they have to physically move a mirror to trace this shape, right? So if you give it like super dense geometry like this to trace, it's not able to do it like every frame. So TouchDesigner, the way that they set up their laser system is that it'll just take longer for it to trace through the whole thing. But if what I could do, but like if I go in here and I go to like the laser chop here, so here you can tweak the settings to have it like essentially you could like compromise and not have as sharp lines. Gotcha. Or like ignore certain things where it's like, okay, maybe I don't have to hit this point as like rigidly, you know, and then it will be able to trace faster, but it's less accurate. So there's a trade-off there. But like with any of these cool systems, it's best to use these kind of limitations to your advantage. So I think this looks pretty cool when it's tracing like this, even though it's overwhelming what the laser can possibly trace. And also as a side note, if you were to go, so the laser's refresh rate, the sample rate is determined by these two numbers here, right? If you were to crank this too high and then give it a really high value, you can literally fry the motors in your laser. So like, yeah, I could attempt to trace this even faster right now, but I could literally fry my motors in the laser. So I'm not going to do that. But anyway, yeah, so this is cool. Actually, just to demonstrate here, kind of how these different settings work. So say I have like this one going right now. So it's tracing up both lasers here. Let me actually go to the camera. Let me show that.
I have it on the side here, but yeah, let's see.
Cool. So over here, I have these different presets set up in Ableton, and this column specifically controls the way, like the tracing options that I've kind of set up. And so I have a few different like looks here. So this one's just tracing everything. If I switch to this one, it's like, so now it's going to kind of start doing all kinds of different kind of like tracing effects where it'll trace through it like a lot faster. Well, it's actually slower. So I'm telling it to spend more time on each point and like limit itself even more in its speed, because when it spends more time tracing through the input geometry, it gets way brighter. Because the thing is, a laser, it's not like a projector where it's like the projector is always like, if you only have a tiny square in the middle of your projector, like a tiny white square, it's not like that square is brighter, you know, than it normally would be. Like the brightness is spread out through the entire throw, right, of the projector. But a laser, like basically its brightest it can possibly be is if it's a single beam shining out, right? And so the more you like, the less you spread it out, the more powerful the beam is. And so it gets brighter. So I kind of use that to my advantage to create really cool effects.
Is the Ableton stuff tied to music, or you're just using Ableton to kind of animate things in some sort of way?
yeah, I'm basically using it as a MIDI controller when it really
Gotcha.
comes down to it. But I'm able to, yeah, I actually don't have that screen shared. But over here, I have a, I'm basically sending it using TD Ableton over to TouchDesigner, and then that communicates to all my other TouchDesigner instances that are
Gotcha.
running. And I have it controlling all kinds of different things, but for this one, it's basically just two columns that are controlling the laser tracing and kind of how it traces. And I have separate settings for each laser, so like they can be
Would it be
different.
correct
So like
to say that you're using Ableton almost the same way that somebody would use GrandMA to, not necessarily use it for lights, but to use just all the, animation tools and stuff inside of a GrandMA?
yeah, to a degree, because I can since everything is on the parameters in Ableton, I can actually animate them in session
Right.
view. So I can have it like go through a sequence in like a 4x4 beat sequence, right? And then
Right.
I can tap tempo. Also, yeah, I do tap tempo in Ableton. So all my animations are synced that way. And Ableton lets you follow the tempo of incoming audio. So like when people are performing live, I can just have it automatically follow the BPM and everything matches up.
Syncs.
So it's really powerful on that level as well, because you can't really do that in any other software. I mean, Maximus P is like the only thing I've seen that does it. Unfortunately,
There's a.
I guess there's one. Yeah, I forget what it's called, but there's one that people use the Resolute. Yeah,
the Resolute one.
but
it uses Ableton, by the way. It
it uses Max. Or uses Ableton?
No, it uses
It
Ableton.
does use
It uses what is the
So it
API
just
called?
grabs
The
it from
Ableton one.
the follow. Yeah, Max for Live or the control surface. Yeah.
No, like
Those are
the same
two
thing that TouchDesigner
ones.
Ableton's using. What is it called? It's called
Yeah.
something.
Well, they use two of them. There's two of them. There's the controller script protocol, which gives you the deepest connection, and then there's Max for Live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can kind of connect the two with this thing called CliffX, but that's a whole nother story. But essentially, yeah, I have this thing tracing now, but it's only tracing the parts that I have that are white in my model here. So,
Gotcha.
you know what? I'm gonna go back to this one actually. I'm gonna duplicate this. I love just duplicating compositions in Notch. I think it's just such a great workflow. Just be able to be like, okay, I like that. Let's move on to another thing like very quickly.
Nice.
It's one of the things I really like about Notch. So yeah, okay. You know what? Let's try. I'm gonna put it on full again.
And could you zoom in on the camera a little bit so we could see on the side?
Let's do it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's take down these. I haven't figured out the best way to do this yet.
Can you
Yeah, so I could animate these. Yeah, totally.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, so let's do that. So let's do a math modifier and we'll do it on all these ones. Let's see. Set it to multiply.
There you go.
Yep.
Too fast, huh?
There it is. Yeah, it's pretty fast. But also it needs to be remapped to 0 to 1. Actually, I'm just going to do an offset by 0.5. And then make my scale 0.5. There.
There you go.
So that's cool.
Super cool.
Let's see. How about, you know what? I haven't tried putting, well, that might be too much. I was going to try to maybe put a post effect on the map itself. Yeah, screw it. Let's see what happens.
Why not? Like a warp or something?
Just like screw it up. Oh, whoops. I have to do the off. Oh, that's not even working. Oh, because the NDI output's up here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I just crashed my laser. Oh, there it goes again. Sick. So the laser chop, it can crash out. It can basically get overwhelmed because you saw how it like steps through, like it just slowly is like going through the whole thing you just gave it. But it can get overwhelmed to the point where it like just almost never finishes sometimes. Which is great because instead of breaking your laser, it does that. But also, yeah, it's like I don't always want that. You know what? How about instead of this, let's transform all of them. What the hell? There. Or yeah, you know what? I'm gonna turn these all down, and then I'm gonna do it like one by one, and like build like a look. somehow. Okay. So this one, let's start with this one. Let's put this up. Okay, so maybe, yeah, we'll have this one like, let's put a transform on it. I think, yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll put like a different like weird look on like each face. We'll try something new on every face. Okay, so there's like one look. Maybe we'll modulate it like this.
Cool.
Okay, so that's one. Now let's do this one. So what's this face? This is that object. Okay. So, oh, you know, I'm doing it on all these faces. You know, I'm just going to turn off these faces because now, which face is which? There. This is the top. I'll just get this one on the side. Yeah, that's the one that really matters. And then, let's see, which is the one on the side here? Box one, right? Yeah, this one. Okay. Well, that's this face. And you can see the other face gets flickery, right? When it gets overwhelmed.
As you give it more light too.
Yeah.
As you're punching up more things.
Yeah. So it's like when the complexity increases, it starts to buckle there. Let's see, maybe this one. Maybe we'll do like a rotation. Let's see. Smaller. Saw, multiply. Okay, now that should be rotating.
That's cool.
Nice. Yes, that's working. You do a little bit faster.
What about?
And then if I were to change these looks now, so it.
Oh, cool! So you're changing it inside of with the Ableton thing.
Yeah. So now I'm changing, yeah, like the mapping of it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so like everything I do, it becomes like the looks multiply because then I combine it with the
is that
the way
was
that it's
that
handling
switch
the
that you were
tracing.
showing before, like the way you're sending the data, basically, like you're sending the different chops.
Yeah, those switches before are those things. Yeah, so there's a few. Actually, you know what? Let me show you what's actually going on in those now.
Show us.
So inside this switch, so inside the tracing modes here, I'm using a carve. So if you look at the laser paths, you see, so a carve SOP will basically like ignore certain amounts of the path. So you see it's like, it's not tracing the full length of the path. It's only tracing like half of it for each of them. And so this one's tracing the full path, right? And this one's only tracing like a small portion of it. And I can control like the speed that it traces them at. So you see like that would be, so that's faster. And then this is like slower. So it'll kind of like move its way through the carve like this. Yeah, if I actually switch over to this look, let's see. I think it's, I don't know which one. Oh yeah, it's up here. Yeah. So I can basically choose like how fast it's gonna like trace through this this thing. And then yeah, so it's basically all carves. And then some of them are really, really tiny carves that just give me like little points. And so this kind of allows me to take just this box stuff and then determine how I'm gonna trace it afterwards. And then there's these three laser like chops that have different parameters. So like this one is pretty normal. It's just gonna scan like correctly, like cover as much as it can. And then this one is a bit faster. So like I changed the vertex hold. So this basically it's going to whenever it gets to a vertex with the laser, it's going to hold there for a little second and then, well, not for a second, for like for a very small amount of milliseconds, and then move on to the next point. And so that basically creates like a bunch of like little lines, I guess, points like on the vertices. So this kind of like does that. And then this last one, I forget even what I did with this. Oh yeah, I think I disabled. Yeah, basically this one I changed up the settings so that it traces in a way that's like that kind of like creates these like interconnected points. I don't know how to explain it. Actually, you know what? Let me go to the full one again. So you could see.
Nice.
Here. So this one, you see, it's like it's actually not doing blanking. So right now, this one, so obviously it's a bunch of little dots. So what it's doing here is it's turning off the laser before it gets to the next dot, right? Whereas with this one, it's not even. I'm just like, you know what? Don't even turn off the laser, but between the dots, just keep it on. Yeah, and so it creates these cool like web kind of things. Yeah.
I'm just like, my mind is racing with like projection mapping and like how it would look so cool, like, you know, as across a stage, just like at Modem we have a bunch of laser mapped stuff. There's like 5 lasers that are laser mapped to the stage, but they're using
Pangolin.
What is it called? Pangolin, yeah. So it's like, we can send it an image. Like we've tried sending it images sometimes, but it's like, you don't really have much control over like what you're showing right now. And in the Pangolin, they make like a bunch of cool animations and some traces and stuff like that. But being able to control it like to this degree is so much nicer.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there is a Pangolin shop.
There's a Pangolin
I'm pretty
shop.
sure
There is, but they're just, the guys that run the lasers don't fuck with touch.
Yeah. So I think this would be a direct like replacement for this. I believe if I connect this, basically connect this to this instead of going to this, right, it would go to Pangolin.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, because that, right? I'm never going to use Pangolin. I'm not going to even touch that shit because I don't want it. I'm just going to build everything custom because that's what I do. I'm not going to have fun using Pangolin. That's like not my thing. And what's cool about this setup is that I'm using pixels, right, to drive the lasers. And so like I can actually use Resolume. Like if I feed Resolume into the spout input, it like lets me program lasers with Resolume. And I literally have laser looks in Resolume that I've programmed. So you can literally like crossfade between them.
Could you play like a noise instead of a square? Just like, let's say like something that has content inside of the square, just out of interest to see how it draws that kind of like those lines.
Yeah. Let's duplicate this. Yeah, so it is going to do a actually I'll do a fractal noise. It is going to take a threshold of the noise.
Right.
Because that's what the trace needs. But yeah, that's basically what it's going to do.
Well, make the period like really high so like it's not so harmful.
Yeah.
You know, there's not so much or whatever it's called in Notch. Some stupid name that doesn't make any sense, bro.
Animation speed.
No, but I mean like the scale of the
the scale.
Yeah.
Oh, right, exactly. The period, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then like the offset, so it's more black and white.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's getting thresholded already in Touch, but yeah, here we go. No, screw it. Let's put it on the full. Wait, where did I have that one? That's the full thing. This one. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so let's put the noise on this one. Oh, my hotkey is F, and F in the new version moves you to the center. So
oh no,
yeah,
Unreal
so it's
style.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go.
Cool.
So there's the noise.
That's cool as fuck.
Yeah, interesting. That's actually really cool. Fuck it, we should do more like this. This is easy to mess with too. Okay, so we got that. Let's see. Let's do.
How do we get it to be more more stable, less tracing? I guess just like.
Oh yeah, here. Let me go to this one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now let's see. I want to mask it maybe with
Yes.
This. Let's see here.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Maybe we'll change the mapping. It's pretty cool to be able to just change the mapping like this.
I love your little previs tool there. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's how I'm mapping it now. It's just cool. Okay, that's probably too big. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. Like revealing different parts of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, why am I not getting very much variation in color? That's kind of lame. There we go.
Can we get an RGB?
No, it's not really set up for that right now. But So right
Is that even
now I'm
possible?
applying the color. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Right now I'm applying the color like in a very rudimentary way. The way I haven't gotten to this point with this setup yet, but the way I was doing it before is that I could actually drive the color with notch as well. Like it would look at this
Gotcha.
color
And it
and
would
then
just take
actually
it.
make the laser that color. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I haven't gotten that working fully yet for whatever reason. But yeah, let's see. Okay. How about let's try we'll just fucking try some generators. I don't know. Let's see Jigsaw. That could be fun. Who has ever used Jigsaw? I would like to know.
Keith loves Jigsaw.
Who
Keith has
used
a
this
whole
on a gig?
Keith uses it at he has a whole Fractal Visions has it a whole setup with Jigsaw and a modem for
Oh my god. Oh
it's
yeah,
super
look at
cool.
that. Jigsaws. That's actually not bad. It's not bad.
Little weird.
Ooh. Okay, actually hold up. Wait, if we
But now have it offsetting. Yeah, now have
scroll
it
it.
moving.
Yeah. Oops.
So the purple over the green is where the two lasers are intersecting basically.
Yeah, right now both lasers are doing the same
Gotcha.
thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh
gotcha.
shit, you know what? I put too much fog in here. It's actually making the lasers less bright. That's a thing that can happen. It's like you put so much fog to see the lasers that you actually make it so the lasers can't get through the fog.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just turn them up all the way. I'll just do it. Yeah, wait, that laser doesn't feel as bright. Oh well, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna have it scroll. This. Oh yeah,
Nice. That's cool.
that's cool.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, you know what? Maybe okay. Now we'll do it. We'll separate it so we have one for each laser, so we can do a different look on each one.
It's a totally different way of thinking about content because it's like it's 3D in the sense that the object that you're hitting it is 3D, but there's no volume. Like it's totally flat, and not only is it flat, but it's also like it's always on the mode of like edge detect. It's like always
Yeah.
edge detecting.
Yes. Yeah, I mean you can only do it's only vectors, right? Like it's
Yeah,
the only thing you can do. So it's like you have to do it that way.
Dude,
But it's cool. I think creative restrictions are
Super
fun.
cool. Totally. At SIGGRAPH this year, we were there with Magic Box, and there was this they had like on the side of the main floor, they had like all these like emerging technologies, and one of them was I wish I could remember the like actual term of it, but it was basically a volumetric laser where it was like this huge box with like tons of mirrors and glass and lenses, and it was like a laser shooting into like this crazy prism that then went through all these tubes and everything, and then eventually came out as like it was like a vapor. It was called like vapor laser or vapor. It was a vapor chamber. It was a vapor chamber, and the laser was shooting onto like some sort of gas, some sort of gaseous something that then created because the software that they had was could control like the different distances of the laser on the refresh rate. It was basically shooting like one laser was shooting, but it was creating volume on the gas because they could control the different depth of the laser. It was wild. And like it was basically like a little hologram. Like it was very small, but it was like a little ball. It was very small, and it almost looked like like a volumetric display, like a LED volumetric display, but there was nothing. It was just empty, and it was just literally lasers shooting into like some gas. It was so wild, and they had like little 3D models like spinning around in like empty space.
That's sick.
It
That's
was
crazy.
so
They had it
crazy.
at LDI. Yeah, because I've seen it. I
SIGGRAPH.
saw some stuff like that at SIGGRAPH. Yeah.
It was.
That was at SIGGRAPH.
It was.
Wait,
SIGGRAPH.
was that
It
this
a
year?
SIGGRAPH. Yeah, it was this year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I haven't been in a while, but when I went in like, I want to say 2017 or 2018, I saw so many of those. And I was like, oh my God. And apparently they do have, they have clients in like the medical industry and stuff.
Yes,
Where they
yes,
actually have to visualize
totally.
in 3D actually like somehow, because those machines are like
Dude,
really
he was telling
expensive.
me it was like a few $1 million, just the glass, like just the glass and the gas. It was like what's that gas? Not Raytheon gas. What's
Argon? No.
argon? It was argon. Yeah, it was some like really expensive gas. And he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was like some like crazy Japanese company, and it was just like, a tiny little thing, but it was just like so cool.
Wow.
This is getting
There we
crazy.
go.
Dude.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I
We
almost
gotta,
want
we gotta get some
try
music
mapping.
in here. We gotta get some music in here.
I could. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Should we do like a? Yeah, I could bash some stuff together. Let's do it. Let's see here. Let's go. Shit, can I hear it? Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, I wish I could control the speed right now.
Are you sending music? No, I don't hear it.
Oh, really? It should be sending.
I don't hear it. Maybe because you switched that setup.
No, it should.
No?
Let me see. Let me see.
Yeah, I think you're right. It should be coming in. But okay, I see. It's coming in from here. 1 second.
Oh, right. We swapped to wait. Yeah.
Now I hear you twice. But there is
Cool.
music. I do hear music coming in.
Yeah, we should have tested that.
Okay, maybe no music. But no, but it's weird because in video I do see something coming in, but must be from
Yeah, we swapped the feeds around though. That is true. Yeah, I want to do something more time coded with this soon, because I feel like that's kind of like I can make a bunch of crazy looks, but I feel like I have way more ideas when like I have a very
structure.
specific song. I'm like, yeah, and then I'm like, okay, like this is what I want at this moment, and then later on I can use those as looks for an improvised thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's always kind of fun to like go between the two. Like sometimes I get too caught up in stuff that's like not time coded at all, and then when I actually do something time coded, I'm like, oh right, of course. It's like it becomes obvious like what I should have made, or like the types of looks I could have explored. But yeah, for me it's like, yeah, the inspiration always comes directly from the music first, and sometimes when you're working directly with the music, it could be a lot. You can discover a lot of cool stuff. Oh, this is fun. Okay.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, let's see. Let's do something different now. Let's just do this laser first. I want to do like a circle or something. You know what's funny? In Notch, there's no good way to make a fucking circle. Like if I do a polygon and then I change the amount of sides, like it gives me like an
oval.
Look at this. It's not, no, but it's not, it's like, it's subdivided by 20. So there's like tiny little like subdivisions
could you have a square go to a circle?
No, this is what I do. Oh yeah, you could do that with the polygon, but with like this, like that's how you could do it with that. But what I like to do is grab a gradient and make it radial. And it's like, okay, now it's a radial gradient, but if you take the inner and outer range, it just becomes a circle. Perfect circle.
So stupid. I mean, so genius, but it's classic Notch.
It's the kind of tricks that, like, yeah, it's kind of fun to have the tricks, but also it's like, shouldn't I be able to make a circle? Like, I can make puzzle pieces, and I can make a star and a QR code, but a circle, like, nah, that's too much,
That's great. That circle.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah. Maybe I could have it like pulsing or something. I don't know. Let's see. Let's do
lasers are just like one of those things that just like, ooh, that looks cool. That looks cool. Laser. Yeah,
I know.
Lasers.
I think there's few things as impressive as a laser. I think, yeah, like Yeah, it's funny. Like when I went to Burning Man, it's like if you're serious, you have a laser, and if or you have fire. Like fire and lasers. Like if you have fire or lasers in your show, like you're serious. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have fire or lasers and all you have is lights and content, like I'm sorry, you just need to try harder. Like
that's so funny. Do you remember? One of the first demos we did at Create This was the laser drawing on the wall with the
I remember
laser
that.
mapping. That was so like people saw that and they didn't understand what it was because it was so it was such like it was such like, aren't we coming to see an XR volume? Why are you doing laser mapping on a wall? That was so funny.
Yeah, Irfan is crazy like that. Yeah, it was cool. And it gets people's attention for sure. Definitely. They're like, holy shit. And yeah, I mean, I've seen that effect used in a lot of shows now, which is kind of crazy. But like, like Excision uses it.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a pretty established, like it's starting to become, I still think it's funny, like lasers have been around for a long time, but we're still barely using them properly in shows, like for novel effects. Like really, there's so much that can be done. Totally. You know what? I could, let me just show a piece of content that I'm going to release soon, but I haven't yet, but it's like some pretty crazy shit.
Yeah, please.
And it kind of shows what's possible with these laser setups. So actually, I'm gonna mute it so we don't listen, but you'll see the final thing. But I use lasers like as a video transition. See that? Like I'm literally like using the tracing. Lasers? Yeah.
Wow.
And then look at this. So I have it like tracing parts of it.
But how do you capture that?
I filmed it on my camera.
You just filmed it on your camera. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. And this is what it looks like in real life as well. So it's like
super cool.
And so the laser's interacting with the visuals and like making ripples in the content.
You filmed it first and then transferred it to Comfy or whatever to some sort of No,
the content was rendered, like this stuff is made in Comfy, but I extracted depth maps from it, and that's how I traced it with the laser. Is then I basically put a threshold on the depth map and was like, you can, and I restricted it to trace
filming it on a black background.
It was projected on my wall.
This is projection.
This is projection.
No. The video is
projection and lasers.
The video's being projected?
Projection and lasers.
Oh,
yeah, and then the lasers are hitting the surface.
Right, and then doing all this stuff. That's so cool. I love it. That's like what they're doing with like the LEDs when you shoot it onto the LED and it does something into the content. Super cool.
Yeah. But this is way more integrated. Yeah, and I have another one where it's like it actually, I don't know if I have a render of it, but I have it spawning bubbles and then it pops the bubbles with the laser.
Cool.
And I'm like, now I'm thinking of all these crazy like video laser interactions that are possible. And it's super cool. No one's like people are not exploring this shit enough. It's like kind of like with AI too. I'm like, no one's exploring this shit enough. And now I have a laser. I'm like, no one's exploring this shit enough. But that's how I feel about it. But actually, hold on. I want to try to. I'm gonna rotate this one. Let's see here. 90 degrees. And map it onto this. It's kind of cool. Okay.
Oh, that's nice. I love that.
Yeah. So if I mean, the next step for this would be projecting onto it as well, and then having those like ripple outwards. Like maybe it hits a point in the cube, and then it like sends out an outward ripple. Yeah. Because like as it stands on its own, like it's cool, but like we integrate this with visuals, and I think it becomes so much cooler. Totally. But also, just so you know, the reason why I decided to create this structure and like map it is because I'm thinking of doing I'm gonna go to like a rock formation somewhere near here, and I'm gonna scan it, and then I'm going to create like an audiovisual like show with it, and then I'm gonna hike out to it with the laser, and I'm gonna film it, and then come back. So it's gonna be like a guerrilla laser installation thing.
Tell me
I think it would be fun.
If I can come join, I would love to.
Hell yeah.
Sounds super cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think it would be a cool thing to do. So
Yeah, laser mapping some
Wow.
rocks. Why not?
yeah, hell yeah. Let's see. What else
You've
can we
piqued
do
my
here?
interest.
Because I told you about like the tunnel shows and stuff. Like, do you
Yeah.
know about those shows I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do them in the tunnels already. I'm like, you know what? Like the next step would be doing a real like installation in these things or something. But yeah, the tunnel shows are fun. We did get kicked out by the police on our last one though, so
That's a good
that
sign.
was fun.
That's a good
Yeah.
sign. You're doing something right if the police kick you out.
Yeah. Yes. But then we just went to another tunnel, so no big deal.
Why do they care?
Cool.
It's just a tunnel.
For I guess fire reasons mostly,
Oh, yeah,
and because I mean, it's true. Like they don't have to care. Because there's been a few that we've done where they actually didn't care, which was cool. Like they showed up and then they checked it out and then they left.
Mhm.
That's happened already. Okay, let's see what the different looks like of this. Oh, okay.
Sick.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Polygon kind of shifting.
Yeah.
Super
Well,
cool.
let's try a different look on each of the lasers. Ooh. Kind of fun. I like the way it's whipping around there. It's like I can control the. Actually, hold. Let me pause it. Oh wait, let's play it. Okay, well it's there, so I can control the speed of its.
Oh wow.
How it
It's
spins around
it's
it,
almost
yeah.
like a feedback, like the way that it kind of catches up.
Yeah, and you see it's like laying down those lines, which is kind of cool. In the air, you can kind of see it drawing out,
Yeah,
like the
it's
lines
really
stay
cool.
in
Yeah, it's
place.
just like- it's like a feedback almost, like really
Yeah.
interesting. Look.
It looks so much cooler in real life. Can't even. But yeah, because the goal of these is to do physical shows. You know, filming it is cool too, but doing it in a physical show is so much cooler. And that's one of the things too with like AI art and all that stuff. It's like people are worried about it, like just making content like so easy to make that it's like has no value. But in my opinion, like the experiences are like what is actually valuable, and
Mhm.
using it to create like stuff for a physical installation where you have people going in here and
Right,
experiencing the stuff, like
yeah.
like and interacting with it,
agree.
like and being there in real life,
agree.
like that
Very
shit is more
valuable.
valuable than anything in my opinion. Like experiences, as like technology gets crazier and crazier and you can get whatever you want, like experiences are the only thing, like they're at the top in terms
Well,
of what you can get, you know.
Not only that, but AI can't replace that because you need a physical person to do it. Like, you know, until like you have whatever these robots that are going to be able to do things for you, you still have to have somebody that's going to like install the Connect and install the fucking, you know, motion leap or whatever.
Maintain it,
You know,
yeah.
maintain it. Like, you know, it can't be taken away, at least not in the near future. Like, you know, maybe the content can be taken away in some way, but like you said, like the interaction aspect of it still needs to be programmed. You need to have the size of the room and the different interaction. And like, you know, I speak to a lot of interactive artists. Actually, an episode's coming out tomorrow with Lake Heckerman, who does really cool interactive pieces. And it's like, you know, the amount of thought that goes into like how do people interact with things, that it's something so human that like, you know, I don't think you can actually quantify it. Like it's also per interaction, per content, per installation. There's going to be so many different variations, you know, that I think that that's something that's like very safe in a way. Interactive installations. You know, the problem is obviously going to be
I think
like,
so too.
You know, the problem is going to be like maybe people won't be more as interested in interactive installations in the future because people will just be at home.
Oh, I don't think so at all. I
You think it'll be more?
I think they're going to be much more valuable. Yes.
Mhm,
I think it like experiences physically are going to be like the most valuable.
Yeah.
Because think about it, like if you think about what a post AGI world, like a post scarcity world, like looks
Yeah.
like, it's like anyone can have anything they want. It's
Right.
like everything's just boring, right? You don't need to do anything to get anything. It's
Right.
like what is out there that's interesting? It's experiences. Like that's
Right.
what it is.
Like once
Once physical things are
interactive.
saturated, yeah,
True.
like you have all the coolest shit in the world. It's like no, like experiences are the things you don't have.
Totally.
and that
Totally.
you want.
It's also
But
the
I do think
joint,
though, yeah.
the joint the joint immersive. Like being immersed at home in
Mhm.
VR is one thing, but what if you can be immersed at the Sphere, with like a bunch of people together, or have like a joint AR experience or something like that. I feel like that's also going to be very valuable as well.
Yeah. I do
What were
think
you
though,
saying?
like, yeah, like there will be, like obviously augmented reality is going to replace a lot of the things that you do physically.
Yeah.
But that's going to unlock some really cool shit. I definitely
Yeah.
think VR is like feels kind of like a dead end, and I think AR is like the real experience like that we're gonna have. But it's gonna be
Well,
weird. Like you're gonna show
there'll
up to
be
a concert and everyone has to have glasses on,
100%.
but the people that have glasses on are gonna be seeing the coolest shit that has
Of
ever been
course.
experienced. Like
Of course.
it's
Well,
gonna
think
be
about all
amazing.
the virtual production AR stuff that we do, and that that people are still doing. Like Berto does the Macy Day Parade with all the AR floats. Like imagine if you didn't have to look at a fixed position for that, and you could just see it from any position, and you could explore it. I mean, that's like. That's the future, in my opinion, is the AR immersive concerts, like because that's what they're doing now, but it's all on a screen or on your phone, which is obviously not immersive. The moment you can just like
Yeah.
hand out everybody glasses when they come into the festival, that's gonna be the crazy shit, and like the visuals, like the particles on simulation on the visuals come out at you, like. I don't know. I'm very excited about that because I like all the visuals that I like to do are always like 3D kind of like, using the stage as like a 3D space, having the pieces fall around or having the pieces fly away. If you can have the pieces fly out from the physical stage outwards into like the crowd, I mean, that's like next level shit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some really cool experiences in the future. It's going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely crazy.
So I think we should just keep on going, like as we kind of shift into our second part here. Instead of seeing you, we could see kind of like what you're creating. I just like I
Sure.
feel like kind of watching you kind of play, and if you get done, we can switch back over if you want. Just let me know.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, the first thing I want to ask you was your shows and Palacio Palace, which is kind of your shows in LA. If anybody's in LA and wants to see Spencer's shows in real life, that's where he's doing it. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing there and kind of how it came about.
Yeah, so Palacio Palace was kind of this project that me and two other friends started right before COVID, and we did like one or two shows and then just went fully into streaming once COVID happened. And it's essentially a show, like a series of shows that we do online and in real life that are showcasing really, really cool artists. And basically everything we do is usually live sound. So we don't really do DJ sets. So everyone shows up with like hardware or we do software as well, like Ableton and stuff. But we really focus on people doing stuff with hardware and yeah, we like to showcase like up and coming artists and like smaller artists that are just like messing around. And most of the people that come to these shows are artists themselves and are making music. And it's just really cool. It's been a really cool way to get all these people connected. And also it's like a way for me to go and do all these really cool installations and just always kind of pushing myself to take it further and further. And so it started off like with, on the stream we would, I did projections maybe on the first maybe two shows, but then in the live stream, I created like a virtual stage setup. And then I would have people stream into us, and I had to create a whole streaming system. So like, after doing the show, it's like you have to get people to get on a virtual virtual audio drivers. You got to get them all like hooked up with OBS, like everything, and we would have to do that for like 5 people, and we do it every week. We'd like get everyone onboarded, people from all over the world. We had people streaming from Russia. We had people streaming from Japan. We had people streaming from China. We had people streaming from like India, like everywhere in the world. People were streaming to our thing. And we did a lot of cool stuff with that. I made a stage in Notch. I made a stage in Unreal. I had a multiplayer stage in Unreal that people could actually go in there and like walk around and interact with each other. And then I ran that for like a month, and I was like, "Screw this!" Hosting a multiplayer server in Unreal is like really hard, and it's just brutal. I was like, "Ah, screw this! I'm done with this." But it's been a fun kind of outlet for me to figure out to experiment with new ideas, and also I create a lot of promotional material for it. That's also kind of pushed me to have like an output of material. So I've done like lots of like mini kind of music videos and stuff in there just to promote it. And it's been a lot of fun so far. And recently we've been doing a lot of Renegade shows. So we'll basically like set up in like a tunnel. We'll give everyone like the location of it, like the coordinates, like the day of or like hours before it, and they just have to go out and get there. And then hopefully we don't get shut down by the police. But it's tons of fun, and I absolutely love doing them. And it gives us gives me some cool opportunities to test out my performance and keep refining it, and push me to have a deadline, like to get the stuff out there. Because if you have no deadline, you could just iterate forever and not really get anywhere. If you have to deliver, like you have to deliver, you gotta have a show. Like the show must be there at the end of the day. And like there's been many nights with Palacio where I had to pull an all-nighter the night before the show just to like get the show to where I want it to be. And that's just how it is, lots of times I'm testing a new system for the first time during the show. Like I feel like almost more times than not, I'd made some very significant big changes to my show the night before. Like that's generally how it goes. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to whip out the setup and it's going to be the same as it was last time. It's like, it's pretty much always I'm testing out a new thing, like every time, or I'm recording it in a different way or like whatever. It's been a really cool way for me to explore possibilities and meet lots of cool artists. And I collaborate with a lot of them as well to create audiovisual pieces. So it's been a lot of fun. Really, really enjoy doing that. And it's been cool to kind of build a little community of artists here in LA that are doing cool stuff. So yeah, if you're in LA, you should check it out. We throw most of the shows are free. Is
it monthly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly?
We try to do at least one show a month, but sometimes it's more and sometimes it's less. This month we only did like one show because we're going to Berlin next week. So
oh wow, what are you doing?
But they're doing a few shows there. My other two friends that run the Palacio stuff are doing some shows. They have a few gigs.
Sweet.
And
awesome.
so I was like, I'm gonna go along with them. I'm gonna document it. I'm gonna go see some cool shit, some cool TouchDesigner shit, probably. Cool. So yeah,
you gotta hook up with Dan, Function Store.
Yes,
he's there, and I'll also connect you with my buddy Fry Visuals and Sophie. You'll love them. They're super cool. Super cool.
Yeah, dude, hook me up. I'm super down.
Yeah,
my schedule's like pretty much open there so far. So I've been to Berlin once when I was doing graphic. Oh, you know what? Screw it. I want to show off what I did last time I was there. Let me show you because it's actually really cool. It's insane. I'm gonna put it up on my screen. It's pretty wild. It's actually out of like all the stuff I did for Silent Partners, this is the one that I'm like really proud of. Here. So for Valorant, they like had a ridiculous budget for this thing, and they created this gigantic. They want to have a performance during one of their competitions, and so they created this gigantic stage full of transparent LED that is automated, like they move up and down, and it was just crazy. Like it was like the craziest stage I ever worked on, and it was only a 12-minute show. And the entire thing, all the content was it all passed through Notch. Like Notch did all of the mapping, and I prevised the whole stage and all of the cameras too. Like I had the camera plot, I prevised and planned out the entire show basically so that people could like figure out, like, before they had even programmed anything, I like had a full run of the entire show all in Notch, like that you could view in a multicam fashion. And I programmed it so like even when the screens moved, like it mapped to the content and everything, so I could like lock it, like have slippy or sticky as they call it, where the content is either stuck to it while they move or it slips behind it as they move. And the whole thing was prevised and programmed in Notch, tons of effects done in Notch. Absolutely insane. But anyway, I was up till like 5 a.m. every night and then would wake up at 3 p.m. and go back to work. And it was in the middle of COVID and it was snowing. So I didn't go out and do anything last time in Berlin except for this. But it was cool. And it's honestly, it's one of the coolest gigs I ever did. So
yeah, it's super cool. And the fact that it was only for like 20 minutes is just like, I love that. That's just like a classic fucking corporate world or commercial world.
Yeah. They never put that much money into it ever again. Ever.
No.
Yeah. I was like, wow, these guys are so cool. Like, I can't believe this is a corporate gig. It's like, yeah, that's because it only happened once. Yeah, it was never going to happen again. So you know, it's how it is.
Super interesting to hear about the Palacio. I kind of joked with you before, but I'd love to take part in some way. I always am looking for, I kind of only VJ in the summer in Europe, and it's like, I'm trying to find more places to do it here, and things like that always look really fun. So yeah, we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
What is before we get into the rabbit hole of kind of an AI talk, just a little bit we spoke about before, kind of the difference between working for like a massive company like SPS and Runway, and then doing things on your own. You kind of touched on it a little bit and said, kind of that once you left SPS and you started doing things by yourself, you started doing a lot more and you started making a lot more art. So I'm just interested, like, what has been your kind of take? This is no offense, but you're a young guy. You've been doing this for a short amount of time, relatively. What has been your experience, kind of like, going from this kind of corporate world and commercial world to being a freelance artist? And sorry, I'm taking a long time to let you answer the question, but a lot of people, including myself, most people, they do it opposite. They start as a freelance artist and they get to like explore things and do their own thing, and then they get to go into the commercial corporate world. So I'm wondering what it was like for you, kind of going the opposite way. How has that experience been like?
I mean, I felt like when I was working at Silent Partners, like I think it was perfect, like the amount of time that I worked there and I was in that stuff, because I got to learn like everything that I needed to know to kind of go off on my own and do whatever. And I feel like it's really great to work for a company that pushes you to learn new things. Because like when I first started, it was all Notch, and then we got into Unreal, and then like doing lots of custom stuff with Touch and DMX lighting as well. Like kind of like picked that up along the way, and so it was really great to keep learning. But then then I started getting into the AI stuff, and it was like, oh, like there's so much more here to do and to discover. And then and I did feel like when I was doing stuff for Silent Partners, I wouldn't like, even though I would do stuff for like Palacio, like the performances and those, and kind of have that like artistic outlet. It wasn't like really my own project completely. Like I didn't have like full, it's funny, I don't really consider myself an artist until like maybe a year ago, like really, because I wasn't really actually making stuff for myself until that point. And then, when I joined Runway, I was like, okay, now I'm only making software, and I'm not really making creative stuff for them. And then I started hanging out online on this Discord, and with a bunch of other artists that are always doing stuff and streaming everything they're doing, and it's just like mind-boggling. I'm just like, wow, look at these people are like just creating so much cool shit like all the time, like never stopping. I will tell you about it later, but I'm not gonna say it publicly. But it's a private server. But
no worries.
But there's a lot of really cool people in there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But anyway, after seeing that, I was like really inspired. I was like, you know what? I want to like actually start building towards something like real a real system or like whatever. Like I want to like find something audiovisual that I could do. And so I started building this system that, you know, like I render content like loops in animate diff, and actually they start in Notch. Then using a depth map, they go to animate diff, where I like restyle them with AI and give them a bunch of creative freedom to do cool shit. Then bring that back into Notch. I time ramp it. I make all this content with it, and then I release that, and then start adding the laser tracing to that, and I project it with the laser tracing, and now it's like a whole thing. And so everything I've been doing kind of for the past year, it's all building on that exact same system. And I never really like at Silent Partners, I feel like I kind of could have been doing it at that point, but I wasn't in the place where I was like inspired to do it. I think it's like once I started hanging out with these artists that were doing stuff like this, I was like, okay, I think it's time to like be serious about making art. Awesome. And then that's kind of how I got there. I think it's really interesting to kind of move from like a salary position to like freelance. Honestly, I think it's incredibly liberating, and I feel like I can just do anything with no strings attached. I love that. And honestly, it's like, it's kind of hard to go back to that, but I might at some point. I don't know. But I for now, I think it's really liberating, and I just like to be able to schedule my time however I want. That is one thing at Runway they did give me, which is honestly, it's like it's a curse and a blessing, because it's like they had like no set hours that I had to be there for, like at Runway. Like as long as I make the meetings, like there's no like specific clock in, clock out time. So like I started staying up till like 3 a.m. and like 5 a.m. and like 6 a.m. And it's like, okay, well now I'm just staying up till the meeting, you know, that's at 10 a.m. you know? And so it's just like, it's just, you know, it's just got so crazy. And I was like, you know, like at a certain point, like one of the reasons I also left Runway is I just got completely consumed by my art. I was like, you know, like this is all I want to do now. Like I'm just completely obsessed. And so I'm just like, screw this, I'm out. So that's kind of been the transition, but yeah.
Do you think there's any benefit to the journey that you had, where you had to, you know, first start off in this kind of corporate commercial world, be a little bit kind of like you weren't what's the word, sorry, I'm losing my words now, but constrained. You were constrained into this kind of like template, but at the same time you're learning a lot and growing a lot, and that kind of forced you to want to be kind of forced you into like a different kind of trajectory. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, is there something valuable to you? I mean, obviously it's hard to say, you know, the grass is always greener, et cetera. And also it's your experience, but like, do you feel like that was valuable to you to first be in that place and then be a freelancer and discover yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% think it was, because I feel like if you're only exploring on your own and there's no like client or like deadline to like really push you to do the thing, chances are you're probably not going to do the thing, you know?
Right. You have to be a very specific
I'd say
kind of person.
Yeah. Like I think that, you know, pressure like that is a really good thing to like really force you to learn. And, you know, it's crazy to me. It's like how, like the stuff that these technologists or tech artists do, like there's no class that can prepare you for this shit, like at all. Like there's no course you can take, like not like the real like learning is learning how to learn, you know, because you constantly have to learn new stuff all the time to do what you want to do. And like that is what I mean, I was already good at learning and teaching myself, and then like at Silent Partners, like that's like what me and he did. Like we were just learn everything that we needed to do. Like to do it, it was never really like there was like I would say there was like a period of like maybe a year and a half where it was like just Notch and only Notch. Right. And then I was like kind of feeling like I was like, you know, like I want to like expand. I want to like not bored, but like you're right. Like I want to keep learning. Like there's no, like I never want to stop learning. Like I will never stop learning. Like 100%. I already know that. Because the shit just keeps getting crazier. It's not like there's no ceiling that we're hitting here. Like it's like it just keeps getting crazier. Yeah. So the learning will continue. There's like I would say if I stopped learning, I would have stopped I would
Creating
have
art.
like not worked at Silent Partners. Yeah, no, I would have gone somewhere else where I can continue to learn. And that's kind of why I went to create this. That's why I went to create this for 2 months, right? Because I felt like there was more to learn, right? And by like both, like building, like helping build and maintain a system while creating the content for the system and being
and you
free
wanted
from
to
like
steal
the
my
limitations
job.
of the size. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, you didn't have it anymore. It wasn't your job anymore at that point. So it wasn't really stolen. But I was like the next person on the list. So
I was like, what the fuck? I introduced, they well, I don't think they fired me. I kind of just left, and then it was like, okay, whatever. But I introduced them to you, and then they fucking go ahead and hire you after fucking firing me. I was like, what the fuck? These motherfuckers. I'm just joking. I actually just saw David. He came by Magic Box a few days ago.
That's dope.
I still really love David and his partner. And I also
shall not be named.
No, I'm joking. I was also really nice because Byron came by, and it was just nice to see, the kind of where they are now, like on their own without me and without you, and they're kind of like, because this is nothing against them, but they were always kind of like on the backs of the people running the show, right? Because I mean, David is like a genius in terms of like, management and operations, but he doesn't understand anything about the stuff that we're doing. And Irfan understands a lot of things, but he's not on a very high level of in anything specific. So like they're always kind of reliant on, in a good way, they're reliant on, same as Silent Partners, I'm sure it's very similar. But it was just nice to see that, like, even though they don't have, myself or you, that they're still thriving, and that Byron, who is, a student now already, like, a higher level, his growth is just great to see. So it was actually really inspiring to see them and not like in any way felt bad in any shape or form.
Byron is freaking amazing. That dude, I mean, the thing is, like, I guess what really impresses me about certain people is like their ability to learn and adapt like all the time, more than like the skills that they have now. And like Byron, freaking, he'll tackle anything, like anything. And like, I mean, that's obviously what they needed. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still like, it's still tough to do that, I would say, but he handles it really well, and he's able to, it's like with the types of, shoots that they do, it's very much like all on the fly and like very not, and planned out. And like, that's how it is.
Very big
promises. High stakes, high pressure. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Totally.
Yeah. They just say like we could do it without really knowing exactly what it takes. But then you know what? We figure it out. We figure it out. We find some sort of compromise to make it possible. But so that's, I mean, I highly respect that. I think it's super cool. But also,
me too. I think it's super cool, and I'm really happy for the time that I got there. I basically learned virtual production by building a virtual production studio. And I had a playground, and they paid for a lot of my life when I was there and got me to stay in America. So, it was like kind of like they really are the reason that I stayed in America. I'm very grateful to them. They're never going to listen to this, so this is kind of like a really pointless plug for them. Nobody knows what we're talking about, but whatever. Go check out Analog Artists. They do cool stuff.
They're amazing.
Before we get into a little bit more of an AI discussion and kind of wind down here, because we're going long, maybe we switch over to camera and we get to see your beautiful face before we end here. So, that was awesome. Spencer, thank you so much for sharing your techniques and workflows and getting to see a little bit into, what you're doing behind the scenes. It's quite impressive, not that I'm shocked that what you're showing me is impressive. It's usually kind of our interactions are like, you show me something, I'm like, whoa, that's fucking cool. Thank you for taking the time to show us. Thank you for the conversation. I think to end things off here, I'd love to just kind of get into a little bit of a kind of more esoteric conversation about AI. I have spoken about AI to a lot of people. I think for me, the conversation is a little bit less interesting of like the doom and gloom of like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs, and more kind of interesting in like, re-education of what AI is right now. Like AI, the word is just a marketing term. There are companies that are some of them are worth billions of dollars. So they're going to push and plug this word and idea as far as possible for their market value. So I think that it's important to, it's a shame that there is not a better word for it, but I think it's important to kind of like think about what is the word AI, artificial intelligence, and what is actually currently available to us as people doing things. You mentioned it before, that kind of like that these models are not really, they're not thinking for themselves. They're not conscious. They're not even close to really creating anything new. Their amalgamation, their iteration, kind of like very similar to what has existed in the past with machine learning algorithms and, taking like a massive JSON library and kind of like indexing lots of different things. I think the really innovation of it is the size of the models, the speed at the way that we can access information, and the way that it's accessible to everybody, right? That I can go online and access an LLM model that was trained for millions and millions of dollars, I think that's the innovation to me. So I just love to hear your opinion about it from somebody who is very integrated into the whole thing. You're very intricate as well. What does it mean to you? Why isn't it a conscious thing? Why is it not like a ghost in the machine? Why is it much more of a, I don't know the word, linear thing that's not like necessarily like, outside of the box that we are being led to understand?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, first, like just on the term AI, it's kind of like become this like blanket term, like buzzword thing. It's like really what has happened is like machine learning, which is, like being able to literally like show tons of examples to basically a matrix multiplication network. And eventually it's able to learn how to replicate those examples. And so what it essentially is now between, we have large language models, which, we basically give it a bunch of text and then we say like, okay, now given this text, like, how would you complete this text? Like, it's literally autocomplete, like is all that these large language models are. Like, it feels like you're talking to some sort of like some sort of entity, but it is really just auto-completing the rest of the conversation. And so that's fundamentally what it is. And then for the image generation stuff and the video generation stuff, it's literally taking like videos or like images and you just keep adding noise to them and be like, okay, now reproduce it without the noise. And then you just keep having it denoise until the point where it's able to generate from just complete noise, right? And so it doesn't have to have something that's half noise. So it's really just like predicting what an image would be from noise given a prompt, and LLMs are just predicting what the text would be given the rest of the conversation. The current like limitations right now are that, like it is very much an interpolation of its training data. So even though I'm able to go in there and get it to program stuff for me, really it's just pulling from stuff like Stack Overflow and other examples online that it's seen of people programming, right? So if you try to get it to step outside of that stuff, it doesn't really work. And a classic example of this, but a really good example of this is if you try to give it certain like problems like the Monty Hall problem and these other kind of like classic kind of reasoning questions, and you just like kind of swap certain details around, it'll still regurgitate the same answer that it's like heard a bunch of times, like because it's not actually evaluating the content of the question. It's just like predicting based on what it's seen, like what the answer should be. And it's not capable of actual like reasoning at all the way that humans are. Like humans are still able to like learn and like push forward in a certain situation, like through reasoning and like experimentation, and like the LLMs are not able to do that at all. They're literally just predicting what's about to occur. And like, that's like, the thing is, like about a year or a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, whatever, people thought that if you just increase the scale of these models, that they would somehow figure out reasoning. They would just get smarter. You know, they would break through just being an interpolation of all this stuff and actually being something that can push forward in a specific area and actually like discover new stuff and really be as useful as a human is. But we've reached the point now where that is clearly not the case, and that there is some innovation that needs to happen in order to push further. So all the major kind of advancements right now with LLMs are more reasoning based, but they've been trying to basically like teach it reasoning. But at the end of the day, it's not going to really work, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of other people. And really, it's kind of at a point now where we have to really reevaluate the method that we are using for like training, and then also for inference. So everything is that, like, the major breakthrough that kind of happened in 2016 was basically this paper called "Attention is All You Need." It's like a hilarious title for the paper, but it basically defined this concept called transformers, which are kind of the way that we are able to predict images from noise, the way that we're able to predict the conversation and keep track of its context. So it's not able to just, it can do more than just looking at like the last few words, and it has like an understanding based on like the vectors essentially of like what the context of the conversation is and how to continue it. But ultimately it seems like we have hit the limits of what that's able to provide in terms of like generating new ideas. And really we're hitting the point where it is just we're just seeing that the limit of it is just an interpolation of everything that's already there. So it's like yes, like you could, everything that you can accomplish with an LLM right now through coding, like you could go onto the internet and find all these solutions and combine it together into that answer. But really the LLM right now is just like creating a compilation of all that stuff into one concise answer for you to give it to you, which is amazing. Like it's still incredible and unlocks all this stuff that we can do, right? But it is not like it's not like its own agent that can actually go out and like successfully complete a task for you. Like there will be a day at some point when they figure this out where you will be able to give it a task, and given enough time, it will complete the task, whatever that task is. And it's like, yeah, go solve fusion energy or whatever. And it like eventually finishes it, you know? But we are farther than that. We're farther from that than we thought we were, I would say, based on like the past year or so. It's like, yeah, like it's going to take a lot more work and a lot different understanding to get there. And I feel like, you know, lots of people are criticizing that, you know, LLMs, they only understand text, and you really need a lot more than text to be able to solve these problems. You really need, like, so there's an idea of kind of like a world model, you know, like we in our minds like create a model of the world. Like we have expectations when someone is talking about a restaurant or something, we're creating like an image in our mind of like what that place might look like. And like as we're walking around and doing things, like we're creating like a some sort of understanding of like our environment and our surroundings, like that, yeah, like are confirmed by our experience. And LLMs don't have any of that. They are just they're just predicting text, you know. So they are not able to have that feedback loop where they're experiencing, they're creating, they're seeing what they made, and they're iterating on it. You can get them to do that, but then once they do that, it doesn't get you that far. So there's so many agentic frameworks out there for like for instance, there's one called AutoGen. So it basically creates like a it's almost like a Slack, like where you can have agents like in a chat room, and it will say like, hey, you go and solve this and come back to me, or like I'll write the code here and then this agent will run it, and if it gets an error, it'll talk to this other agent, which will then make another version of the code and send it back to this one and then evaluate it. But we've hit the limits kind of what we can do with that. I mean, it's still getting better, but the framework that we have for these LLMs right now and for image and video generation, it's getting better, but it's very much an interpolation of what humans can already do, and it's not breaking through what humans can do. And I think that we have to really rethink the way that we're training these models and the architectures for them, and in order to break through that. And I don't think that's going to be easy. I think that it's going to actually take a lot longer to get through that. So we will see. But yeah, in my opinion, that's like the current, like limitations of it. The LLMs are very, very powerful right now. I do expect them to get even better at coding than they are now before there's like something better. And the video and the image models are going to get way better. Like in terms of being an interpolation, they have a much higher ceiling.
Like being able to understand the frame before kind of thing. Because right now it's like they don't really understand the frame before, right? Like the temporal understanding.
No, the video models do, they do. But they have a certain context window with which they understand it. So they can't. Like right now, the biggest context window is about 10 seconds. So it can understand 10 seconds all at once. And then if you want to extend that, it maybe has a certain overlap. And then it extends from there, given what happened in the certain amount of time before the extension. But
you're saying that in that 10 seconds, it can understand, okay, like something's moving from, from beginning to end. It understands like from what I understood, it doesn't understand really like what happened before. It's kind of like the language models where it's just like the language models don't understand what it wrote before, right? It's just kind of going down, right?
They do. They do. But it consumes their context. So it's basically like the more you feed in, because like it's autocomplete, right? So it's like you can give it like a shitload of text and then predict. Like think about it, you could give it like a whole book that's like a detective story, right? And then at the very end it's like, and the killer, like the guy's revealing like the killer, it's like, and the killer is, and then you tell it to like complete it, right? It has to have the full understanding of everything that reached that point to then predict who the killer was, right? So so it's able to get understanding that way, but ultimately it has a certain context limitation. The context actually has been getting extremely big, which is really, really cool, because it means that you can have gigantic code bases and it will understand it and it will be able to answer questions properly and write code for it properly. But the video stuff, I mean, doesn't have as big more.
It doesn't have, I don't know. You've seen all these examples of like people walking down the street or something like that, and there's still like, some flickering or whatever, but it doesn't seem to me like it understands that like the person was over here and now he's over here. It just understands that like, okay, if I look at a million videos of people walking down the street, it's going to look like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
so let's see. Yeah. So there's, I've already kind of gone over the limitations of LLMs, but then the video models. So the early limitations we saw, first of all, it's like, like if someone is like walking and then they walk past a tree and it occludes them, then there's no guarantee they're going to come out on the other side of that. Like with the original, like the smaller models. But so the smaller models had less of an understanding. They had less that they can learn. And then as we started to scale them up, it's like, okay, occlusion is less of an issue. And then we're starting to get some understanding of the world. So there's like this idea that if we give it enough data, it builds a world model where it starts to understand things like physics, starts to understand things like light.
Real, though?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And it's getting better and better. And we're seeing that it's getting better and better. So if you look at
it on like
something
a visual context, or it understands it on like a conceptual context, because a visual context might not be enough for it to like make up a new thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen the examples of like, the teacup and the waves in the teacup, but that's just like, that was just like a very lucky, probably one out of hundreds of different tries, until it got to be good. But
yeah, I mean, if you look at, honestly, Sora was kind of like when the videos from that came out, it was like, okay, yes, like world understanding is a thing, because you look at like the way it generated, like for instance, there's like a dog in one of the examples that's like walking on the windowsill, and then it like there's like an adjacent windowsill, and it like literally like the dog like looks over to the adjacent windowsill and like looks down. It's like, oh, I'm gonna put my paws here and then like put it there, and it does it all perfectly. Like it's literally had to model out like the way it has to have an understanding of how a dog interacts with its scene and like the decisions that dog is taking. Like,
but
it doesn't.
Is Sora available? Is it an actual thing? Nobody's been able to use it. It's not like available.
Only
to the
some
public.
people.
Right. So then that makes me think that those are just very lucky situations.
No. Sora's legit. Yeah, no, I know people that have access to it. It's totally legit. And also the other models have, so there's like So there's like 3 models out there that are like really, actually like 4 that are like really, really good right now. So there's a Runway ML Gen 3, obviously, which is really, really good. Then there's Kling, which I would say has it can be even better, but
Kling, I've seen a lot of people take like images and like old images of their grandparents and like move the images of their grandparents. I've seen like some stuff from Kling like that.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
They all do image to video. Yeah. Yeah, so like, Runway does image to video. It does video to video, so you can like you can retransform input video, and you can do text to video, of course. That Kling also does all those things. Luma is less advanced of a model. Like the quality is not as good. The level of like world understanding, I would say, is not as good. But it would let you choose a start and an end frame. And now Runway does that, but I'd say Luma still does it better. So it's kind of cool because you can create a transition. You could say like, here's the end of this clip and here's the beginning of this one, and it figures out what happens in between, which is really fucking cool. Like you can create a loop that way, right? So that's pretty sweet. But a new one that has kind of hit the scene recently is called Minimax by this company called Hailuo. And holy shit, that thing is fucking insane. It is like really, really crazy. So that one has a very good understanding of the world, and I've seen it do some insane things. But kind of like the way that we kind of gauge that level of understanding, like there's a few kind of like telltale signs. First of all, like you could do something like telling it to like put an egg into like a pan or something like that, and like if the egg goes into the pan, it actually like reacts. Like there has to be like cause and effect, right? Like it has to understand like if this happens, then this happens, right? Like if like that's the kind of stuff that the early models couldn't understand, and now these bigger models are understanding. And so it is more than just like the fidelity. It's like it has to build a simulation of the world, right? Through learning these videos. And I think that is actually possible. And I think that video models are just the start, but when you think about what a video model is doing, it is simulating the universe, basically. And
that's what I'm saying. Is it really, or is it just looking at lots of different things and understanding that that's what it should be doing?
It's the same thing. Because basically it's building an understanding of the universe and being able to simulate it, just given like videos. And basically the thing that has been improving the quality of these models is not just the scale of the models, like more data, bigger models with more parameters, like more brain cells, basically, but also the data, like the annotation of the data. So like saying exactly what's happening at every moment in the most meaningful way possible, so that it understands everything that's happening in every moment.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And so they're captioning these videos extremely densely right now, where it's like every few frames it's getting a new caption that's updating exactly what's happening.
What's going on.
And I think that the better these captions get and the better the data labeling gets, the more it'll be able to understand. And of course, increasing the scale also will help. But like these video models are just the beginning of these world models, like that can understand and simulate the world. And I think we're going to get to the point where it's like you can simulate like actually I did see a paper recently that was able to simulate how the human brain interacts with certain drugs, essentially, and stuff like that. Like they're able to simulate using a model like what would happen if we gave this chemical to a brain. Essentially. And so it's actually a way of like simulating reality using these models, like, because like simulating stuff usually like with like Notch or Unreal or whatever, like it's all just tricks, to try to get it to look right, whereas this is like really trying to actually understand at a fundamental level like kind of what's happening. But it has to build that understanding in a very unconventional, very like black box kind of way. So
well, I wonder if like the way that Notch or whatever, Unreal, simulation, Liquid Gen, Ember Gen, they're using math, right, to understand different aspects of the world. And yeah, there are tricks involved to kind of make it work in real time or make it work, in ray tracing instead of path tracing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I wonder if the same thing of like tricks are going to happen with these large models, where it's like it's not actually as accurate as the math is, because math is like 1-to-1, right? If a liquid simulation is literally how liquid works in physics, right? Like obviously it's not the same way that the world or the reality is generating it, because there's a lot of variables going on, like, and this is like totally out of my scope, but like, forces and gravity and density and the chemical makeup of the thing are all involved in reality, right? And like liquid simulation is trying to take all those mathematical equations that we know about different things and put them all into one, right? With different solvers or different algorithms that can kind of like predict these kind of things in some way. So I wonder if like the models that we're teaching are going to be as quote unquote accurate as these kind of mathematical equations that are much more truer to the nature of reality. Because it's like, if you think about it, like, actually now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's like obvious. Like if I teach a kid, like I'm teaching my kid right now how to talk, right? Like I'm talking to him, and the more I talk to him, he's understanding words, and he's starting to understand it, like yes means yes, and what no means, and he's not learning it from like a mathematical equation. He's like learning it from me showing it to him and me teaching it to him, or from example, which is kind of like what these models are doing, right? You're giving them lots of examples, and from the examples they're learning. I don't know. I wonder how like there's some sort of trajectory, right, where like math is not finite. Math is like not finite. What's the word? Is exact kind of science or whatever. What's the word? Not finite.
Precise.
Precise. A very precise kind of thing, and like explanation or like learning from example is a very subjective kind of thing. So I wonder where those two are going to meet in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we will be able to teach these models, like these models will be able to learn more about the world than we would be able to just by running experiments at a certain point. Not right now. Like right now, they still like they're not at the point where they're able to just simulate anything. But they are learning. But they take obviously, a lot more examples than a human would, right? Like I've heard like my friends are talking about this example, but it's like you say your son has never seen an elephant before,
right?
And he's never even seen a picture of it, right? It's like you could show them like one picture of an elephant and they would know exactly what it is, right? Forever.
Right.
Like they would have an understanding of what it is, and probably they could like simulate in their mind. Yeah. But they could simulate in their mind how it might walk and stuff like that, right? Or how it might move without ever seeing it move. Right. But a video model like would never be able to understand that. I would never like an image model would never be able to generate multiple views of an elephant without seeing many of them, right?
Many elephants.
So so there's still a lot of understanding still to be there, but it will get to the point where it is a more efficient way to simulate the world. And there's been a few, there's been a like the first like world model attempt that I saw was by I believe the company is called Wave, WAVE, and they made a video model that just predicts driving footage. So it's like a dash cam, right? Yeah. And so any given moment that a self-driving system is moving, it's already predicting what could happen at any moment by generating video of what might happen, right? Based on, okay, we've seen this before. A person's about to walk across and we can simulate, they're going to walk across the whole thing, right? Or something like that. And so it by predicting and learning how to predict, it actually does get a very good understanding of the world. And I think the more examples we give it, the better its understanding will be. And we can get down to a very fine-grained level where it's like we can predict like how particles are going to interact or some shit like that. Or it's like it's not just video anymore.
Then you add the math understanding to the prediction, right? And then you're starting to get into like a very interesting place, because that's also.
But I think that honestly it could, like, we could get it to predict to the point where then we can extract the math from that. Right. Because it's predicting shit that we don't even understand, like how it actually works. Right. And then we can run enough simulations that it's like, oh, like this is what's actually happening, So I think it will get to the point where we can actually we can simulate stuff on such a level that we can then extract the actual math from it, because these systems are able to create connections and understandings that are very, very complicated that we might not be able to predict any other way. So, because it's like, how do you create an algorithm that creates video, right? Like, imagine that you had to create a hand-coded algorithm that is able to reach the performance of Runway or Sora, right? Like, imagine if you had to do that. And so, like, that's what, science and mathematics is, right? They're trying to find like algorithms to simulate this stuff. It's like you could actually like have a system learn and absorb all this data, and then you can probe it to get the understanding that's actually like underlying. But it's it still has a long ways to go, but it is a very promising way to like simulate the universe. But there's a really big ceiling, I would say, to the video generation. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really nice place to end it, and kind of in a positive form of like we're not being replaced by robots yet, and hopefully that they'll help us understand more about our reality and existence, and hopefully make the world a better place and not a worse place. So Spence, is there anything you want to say before we go? Anything you want to plug before we end?
No, that's it. You can check out my Instagram if you want to see some crazy laser stuff, and Palacio Palace if you're in Los Angeles and want to come to one of our crazy ass shows. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was such a nice conversation. I love hanging out with you, even if it's virtual, and I really appreciate all the stuff that you shared with us. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me.